We are live on a Monday edition of the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there, weekend that was, we'll take a look back at everything that happened. Brackets are out. Everybody is in March Madness mode. I'll tell you what, we start there. As you take a look at the brackets and all that stuff and the March Madness, well, it hit the city this weekend. Boardwalk Hall had a great crowd. I got to be honest, man. I'm pretty pumped, pretty excited, pretty happy with the turnout at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City for the MAAC Basketball Championship. Had a lot of listeners say hello, had a lot of listeners reach out on social media and said that they went to the games, they had a great time. Place was pretty crowded. I mean, it was an awesome game. Iona went up 10 early. Mount St. Mary's comes roaring back. And I'll tell you what, the one cool part about it, and this is the one thing about Boardwalk Hall, the acoustics in that place are great. So when the crowd gets into it, it is loud in there. And that place was roaring on Saturday night. The bands, they get into it. The crowd starts to get going. And pretty much, listen, they're not going to sell the place out. That's just not, it's not feasible to think that they're going to sell that place out. It sits like $14,000 for basketball. But if you can get that lower bowl on both sides, not around the basket in the back, I don't even know that they sell tickets back there, honestly. Just the two sides. From end line to end line, it was pretty full in there, and it's loud. It was a great environment. By the way, Iona ends up firing the coach today, Tobin Anderson, if you remember him, if you're a March Madness fan. He was the coach at Fairleigh Dickinson when they beat Purdue as a 16 seed. He gets hired by Iona to replace Rick Pitino. Then he gets fired for taking his team to the championship round of the tournament when they were about 500 this year. Now, I don't know if being 500 had more to do with why he got fired, but this is about a 500 team. They go all the way to the championship round. They end up losing that game, and Tobin Anderson fired today. But the bigger story, I thought, was the fact that I don't know how many local people went out. If you're listening today and you went to the game, let us know, 609-403-0973. We saw a bunch of people that I knew there throughout the tournament. People were texting me, hey, I see you down there. I was calling the game for college basketball coast-to-coast radio, and it was great. I loved it. It was, I mean, look, a good sign was those high-top tables in the front, they were all pretty much filled. Both sides of the arena were pretty much filled. Even the upstairs, that second deck, had some people up there. When you're getting people to go up into that second deck to get tickets, that's a pretty good sign. Now, the big thing is, I think, I went Thursday night. Crowd was good. It wasn't great. I'm not going to sit here and say it was great. It was okay. Thursday night was okay. Friday night, I went, and the crowds was pretty good. I would say it was pretty good. Wasn't very good. It was pretty good Friday. I thought Saturday the crowd was about as good as you can expect. Mount St. Mary's is like 3 hours away from here. Iona's about 3 hours away from here. So, listen, when you think about it in this context, if Iona plays Mount St. Mary's on a Saturday night in a regular season game, how many people are going to that game? Not a lot. It's not like these two teams draw all season long. They're getting their fans. They're getting their diehards. They're getting their families. They're getting their parents. It's hard to ask those teams to travel. But what the MAAC tournament for next season is doing is interesting because if you're somebody who went, and, I was talking to the commissioner of the MAAC, and he said, look, one of the things that we hope is if you come to Boardwalk Hall to watch basketball one time, that's the hook, like watching a game here. And I say, he's right. He's right about that. Watching a game at Boardwalk Hall is second to none. You cannot find I'd rather watch a game at Boardwalk Hall than Wells Fargo Center any day of the week. I mean, that place is just great. Everything is right on top of the floor, and, everything's accessible. The bathrooms are right there. The food is pretty accessible. Everything's perfect, in terms of the aesthetics and the sound and all that stuff. But next season, the MAAC basketball championships will be played on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday The women's championship will be on Monday night, and the men's championship will be on Tuesday night. So what that should allow for is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Thursday when that tournament starts, Friday when that tournament is like getting into its second day, all 10 teams will all be there for the weekend. And that should get all 10 programs all there for a weekend. And then that should have people say, you know what, whether our team makes it or not, let's just go to Atlantic City for the weekend. And then if my team happens to make it to the finals on Tuesday night, we'll just stay and hang out for another night, or maybe we drive home and come back, depending on which teams are in it. I mean, if you get St. Peter's in it, they're a Jersey school. If you get, Marist in it, they're like 3 hours. Most of these schools are like 3 hours. Some are on that next, 6 hours, the teams out in Albany out there. But by playing on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you at least now get a maximum amount of teams that will be there all weekend. When this tournament starts, all 10 teams are here on a Tuesday. Well, it's hard to say in the middle of the work week, I'm going to go watch a basketball game on a Tuesday night. So I understand the lack of attendance early on in these tournaments. If you watch the big tournaments, you go watch the Big East, you go watch the SEC, you go watch the ACC. There's nobody at those tournaments in the early round games either. But what they do is, during the weekend, you start to get the crowds coming in. And that's what happened this weekend. You had the crowds come in and really start to bolster to where it got to Friday night, Saturday night, where you had some pretty good crowds. So good crowds, I thought. But I'm actually excited that what I saw this year and what they have scheduled and how they have it set up for next year, that because next year's the last year of the contract. And, there's always speculation with anything in Atlantic City. If it doesn't draw, they're going to stay. I thought this weekend was a good barometer of, okay, we got some people in the building. Next year, the whole tournament, the meat and potatoes of the tournament are going to be on the weekend, and that should really help those numbers go up. And hopefully that will help them extend the tournament for, another 3-year, 4-year contract or something like that. Because one of the things, the MAAC, people say, why do they MAAC play here? Why is it Atlantic City? They don't want a home site to host the tournament. They don't want someone having a home court advantage. That's why the ACC, they play in Charlotte. Well, there's no ACC school in Charlotte. The SEC plays in Nashville. Yes, Vanderbilt is in Nashville, but kind of, but not really. So they don't want someone having a home court advantage. So they pick something that has something for everybody, and the teams can have fun. And talking to many of the league presidents and the teams and the players, look, the players are staying at Ocean. The men are. The women are at Hard Rock. The league presidents, they're staying at Ocean. So, listen, you ain't going to another town and getting a better hotel set up than Ocean. You don't have to leave the premises, and you're having a great time. So the teams like it here. The schools like it here. I hope the fans, if you're listening and you went. Now, I got a lot of people that messaged me on social media, people that were texting me that were at the game, and I didn't get one person that said, man, what are you talking about? This stinks. The games were great. Almost every game was down to the wire. A lot of energy in that place. So I thought, listen, everybody loves to take the hammer and just hammer down that the city can't do this. They don't get that right. Look, they got enough. They got a lot of problems over there. I'm not sitting here arguing with that. That place is so much more potential than what we get from it. No question about it. There could be so much better and more that happens over there. But this is one thing that they get right. And by the way, it's not all the city because they don't pick the times for the games. Those are all dictated by television. Because I told the commissioner, listen, I think 8:30 on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night is not conducive to getting local people to go watch a game there. It's just not. And there's nothing they can really do about that. That's what time television wants them to play. And by the way, that's why they're moving the tournament, because ESPN is going to move them and put them and highlight their games on a Tuesday night. They're going to play in the championship game on Tuesday night on ESPN. Why? Because there's no other games on at that time. There's no other games on at that time. On a Tuesday night, there's no other college basketball games that they have to compete with. So they're saying, look, Mac, you're getting the whole night to yourself if you want to play on Tuesday night. So I thought it was a good weekend for the basketball, and it makes me feel pretty good. I figured next year would be the last year and that they would just look for another place to go. Talking to the commissioner beforehand and then seeing the crowd and then knowing what they're doing moving forward with the schedule, I think there's a good possibility, and I don't have this on any, but any word from any. It's not like he said, hey, this is where we're going to be. But I think there's a good shot that next year the attendance will be better than what it was this year, and that if that's the case, that they would definitely be back for 2027.
And for those who are wondering also about the way the setup is for television, over the years, Gonzaga and St. Mary, that WCC final is always the late game on Tuesday nights. The idea is that the MAAC tournament is going to be the lead-in at their championship for the other championship. So,
yeah.
It's ESPN's way of saying, hey, we got an open slot. We're going to showcase you 7 o'clock Tuesday night, Atlantic City.
It's much better, I think, for the MAAC anyway. Look, the MAAC is, let's be honest, it's a smaller conference tournament. The champion, Mount St. Mary's, is the 16 seed. They are playing on Tuesday night. Wednesday night in the first four. So they are playing in the first four games here. And that's the size and level of, tournament. Now, they've had teams like St. Peter's was a 15 or a 14 a couple of years ago. Look, Mount St. Mary's was a 6 seed that won this tournament. And so because they were the 6 seed, they weren't the 1 seed. If Quinnipiac wins, maybe they're a 15 or a 14. But because you're a 6, so look, it's a smaller tournament. But for whatever reason, they being a mid-major decided to play the same week as the majors.
Right.
You don't see that. Like, generally, the mid-majors all play the week before, right? Like, if you were watching last week, you had all your SWACs and your SoCons and your NEACs, and all of those tournaments are playing last week. And then the big boys, they all start Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday is their championship. Some play on Sunday, like the Big Ten. So I don't know why the MAAC thought it was a good idea to get go up at the same time as the major conferences, but this will put them back where is if they get a buzzer beater or they get an upset, it will be the news of the night.
Correct.
As opposed to you get a buzzer beater or you get something and so does, Duke beats North Carolina. Well, now you're lost in the sauce. I mean, that's not going to top Duke, North Carolina. That's not going to top Auburn getting upset. That's not going to top Rick Pitino and St. John's winning the Big East for the first time, since like the 90s. You get lost in the sauce there, and it's a shame. Now, I think this helps out because it's earlier. If something big happens, they'll get the credit that they deserve. I thought the basketball was great. Anybody who went, I think you saw high-level basketball with teams that were laying it on the line. I think that it was a great product, as it generally is. I never question the product. These are college kids. Are they lottery picks? Of course not. But they are high-energy guys. If you have a son or daughter, who's a high school player or a middle school player, and you want to show them what it takes, because let's be honest, how many major D1 players are signing from the Cape Atlantic League region? Not many. So you can go there and say, look, these guys are playing in this conference, and look at how high level. Look, you can go to a Stockton game. Coach Bittner over there does a great job with those kids, and that's a Division III game. Go watch that and see if you can even compete. Go to these games on Friday night, Saturday night at Boardwalk Hall when you're down to the final 4 teams and show, hey, this is the level of play you need to be able to get to if you want to think about playing college basketball. So it's a great opportunity, and it's a great event that I hope a lot of people in the listening audience got to go to. I know a bunch of you did. I appreciate you guys messaging me. I got one today from Nick at NickJ185. He says, I took my son Friday for semifinals. He liked it so much that I ended up surprising him with tickets for Saturday night as well. Good games. He had a lot of fun. Nick, appreciate you sending us that post because, yeah, I think most of the people that went said it was worth their time going. I know we had another message, 40 Kids 77 at Mike Gill Show. We came from Egg Harbor City to check it out. Affordable tickets and a great game. We enjoyed it. So a lot of people sending me messages to that effect, that they had a great time, that there was a great game. So that's what my takeaway was, because I wrote an article of saying, listen, local people need to go support this. And quite frankly, I don't know how many local people went out that made the attendance what it was. I think Mount St. Mary's brought a good group of people.
Yeah,
I think Iona brought a good group of people. And I think local people filled in the gaps. It would be cool if they had like a locals night, maybe, where like all the high school teams can come out together, maybe all the middle schools one night, maybe the high schools another night, something to that, or Cape May County schools all one night. You get the middle, the lower, the Wildwood Catholic, the lower Cape May, the Ocean City, and they all get tickets, and then they all get to go. I mean, you figure if the whole high school basketball team goes, that's 12 to 15 kids. If the whole program goes with JV and freshmen, now you're talking about 30, 45 kids, depending on the school. And that's a lot of people to fill up a couple sections. So hopefully next year it grows and gets bigger. And if you didn't go, well, you got one more year to try to go next year definitively, and then we hope that they extend the contract. If you did go, let me know what you thought. And if you have any ideas on how to make it better, 609-403-0973 on the text board, 609-403-0973. You know, the only things I can say to make it better are kind of out of their control. One, the times. They do not pick the times of the game. They cannot pick the times. Those times are handed down by the television, right? ESPN, you did the games this year. ESPN Plus did, I think, the early round games. Yep. Next year, the championship game will be on ESPN, I think the regular ESPN. So if you want to complain about times, there's nothing they can do about that. But is there anything else that you think they could do a better job? Let me know, and I'd love to hear any ideas that you might have on how to improve that event, because I thought this year was much better attended than last year. I was very disappointed with what I saw last year, and I've been to games over the time here. I thought this year for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, those 3 nights I thought had pretty good crowds for all 3.
You know, historically, Mike, Friday's been my favorite night because it's a semifinal, and I thought the semifinal this year was much more well attended than last year, and you got 2 exciting games. You know, I was talking with their guy in charge of PR for them, their media guy, Hamilton, and him and I were talking about how, you know, in years past, you know, that second game, the semifinal, hasn't always been competitive, you know, because, and you saw throughout this past week that, you know, sometimes the games you thought were going to be more competitive or maybe one-sided, but it was really exciting to have both games on Friday, and it almost like the energy from the 2 Friday games rolled into Saturday, which made it even more fun.
Yeah, I thought the other thing, too, was, you know, for the most part, even Thursday night, you know, when I went Thursday night, I went with Earnshaw on Thursday, and it wasn't a great crowd. I wouldn't by any stretch of the imagination, but you could start to see that it was starting to get to that point where people were coming in. It was getting louder in there. Let's see, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. All right, any thoughts on that? Let us know. The other quick thing I do want to get to is the Eagles, is why you were late night, whatever happened on your weekend. You may have missed this, but if you have alerts on your phone, we sent out the alert that Mekhi Becton is no longer an Eagle. He has signed away. He is now with the Los Angeles Chargers, and he gets a 2-year, $20 million deal to sign with the Chargers. And that's really the last back-breaking move for the Eagles. They've lost another player in free agency on Friday night. Mekhi Becton gets a 2-year, $20 million deal. He signed a 1-year deal with the Eagles before last year. He ends up beating Tyler Steen in training camp, becoming the right guard after a lot of injury problems with the with the Jets. He comes to the Eagles, and he ends up getting shifted from a swing tackle that was just kind of trying to prove that he belonged on the roster, and he beats out Tyler Steen and became a pretty key piece. He was a former number 11 overall pick for the Jets and played mostly tackle there, but he had a lot of injuries. and then he missed all but one game in 2021. He played missed every game in 2022, and then he played 15 games with Philadelphia last year. But as you guys saw, he was in and out of the lineup with different injury situations. Without Becton now, Tyler Steen is right back into the same situation that he was last year. He has a chance to win the right guard position with another former first-round pick, Kenyon Green, who they traded for last week in a trade involving C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That becomes probably the biggest battle to watch again, that right guard position. Who will win the right guard position? But another Eagle key free agent is out the door. And when you think about it, they lost every single free agent except for Zach Bond. They traded away Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and we don't know what's going to happen with Dallas Goedert. So here I am on a Monday. I can clearly say to everybody listening today that the Philadelphia Eagles today are nowhere close to the team that won the championship in February. They're not close to that team, at least defensively. Can they be better than that team? Seems a bit far-fetched. I don't know how I talk myself into saying that this Eagles team can be better defensively than last year's team, but do they need to be? That's the big question.
Well, the problem with all this that we just said before, Mike, it's March 17th. Howie's season lasts 24/7, 365. Some of the biggest moves that he has done over the years has been on draft day. It's been in May. It's been in August. Howie doesn't win because of what he does in March always. It's because what he does later in the calendar. So, yes, maybe right now the roster doesn't look that great, but shouldn't we trust Howie to maybe let this thing play out for a few months before we judge the work?
Not judging his work at all. Just saying today they're not better. My question would be, with what's left over, I don't know that I see a path to getting better. All right? You're not as good at defensive tackle. You're not as good at edge rusher. You're not as good at corner.
You're not as good at depth at D tackle. You still have Davis. You still have Carter. You still have a Jomo.
Yeah, but I'm saying the player that you lost, you have not replaced him with a better player. The edge rusher, Josh Sweat, you lost him. You have not replaced him with a better player. Darius Slay, you have not replaced him with a better player. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, you have not replaced him with a better player. No player that has walked out the door have you replaced with a player that you think is better than the guy who left. Fair or unfair? Now, they might turn out to be a better player, but to this point, their resumes, the player that left is better than the player that's currently here. Now, that could change. Maybe Kaylee Ringo just needs to be the full-time starter, and he'll be better than Darius Slay. I doubt it. Maybe Moro Jomo just needs to be the full-time third guy, and that makes him, with more reps, he becomes better. I don't see that happening, but okay. So my point is today. But my question becomes, where is the path that you're going to get better at tackle, edge, corner, and safety? You might get better at one of those spots, but I think it's a little far-fetched, even in Howie's season, to say he's going to find a way to be better at all all four of those spots between now and training camp. Yes, he's not done. They can make trades. They can make more moves. I'm not saying that he can't. I'm just saying I don't know how you're going to get better at those four positions, and you're not as good at right guard right now than you were. That being said, I wouldn't have signed Becton for the $20 million. I don't know their financial situation as good as they do, but I think Steen for the money I don't think Becton was $10 million better than Steen.
Right, he was not that much better, and good for Becton. He got his money, but Philadelphia wasn't going to give him that. And I hate to say it, but I don't even know how good Becton is going to be, because the only year he's been really good in the NFL and he's been healthy has been with the Eagles. Who even knows what he's going to be with the Chargers?
Well, I think that's why it took him so long to get a deal. I think people were worried whether or not he was a product of the Eagles, and someone finally buckled and said, well, we need offensive line help. We'll take the shot. And I think they're planning on playing him at guard, by the way.
Now, to your point about the four positions, I agree you're not going to be able to hyper upgrade all four positions, but what I do know is Philadelphia has had success beefing up the defensive line, and while you might not be able to get like a serious upgrade at corner or safety, you could beef up the defensive line and kind of like offset it.
Again, yeah, I'm not saying they can't be. I'm saying today they're not better. Now, where can they get better? Okay, maybe pick 32 comes in and he just completely outperforms the position he was drafted. Maybe the edge rusher at 32. Maybe they make a trade. Those things can all happen. I'm just saying, I don't know that you're going to be better at all 4 of those spots than you were last year.
Really quick, one trade to keep an eye on. Trey Hendrickson is still out there. The Bengals just emptied the bank on everyone but Trey Hendrickson this weekend.
Yeah, and his name was tied to Philadelphia in a weird trade over the weekend. I think this is one of those like clickbaity type of trades.
Sure.
But that was kind of interesting because it made a little bit of sense, I guess. We could throw that out there. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joins us on the other side to take a look back at the weekend that was. The Phillies are paring down their roster as they are 10 days away from the opener. And don't forget, speaking of the Phillies opener, we're going to be live for our Phillies opening day watch party at Maynard's in Margate next Thursday. And we're giving away a pair of tickets to the Phillies home opener. Listen for your cue to call. When you hear that sounder today, it's your chance to enter to win those tickets or Metallica tickets. That's all today. Jeff Nadu breaks down the brackets in the 3 o'clock hour. You're not going to want to miss Nadu at 3. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. 2:33 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We had a busy weekend. Atlantic City's Boardwalk Hall played host to the MAAC basketball championship games. I thought well attended on the championship night. I thought Friday was solid. Thursday, pretty good. It doesn't set the stage that the tournament could be staying here. They'll have one more year left. They're changing the format. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, joins me now. And Mike, we were talking before the game. I saw you over there. Good crowd on Saturday night. We know there's 1 year left of the contract to stay there. The crowd that they had Saturday, Friday, coupled with the changes to the schedule, do we feel better about the future of that tournament in Atlantic City? Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I asked the listeners out there who are listening, a lot of people messaging me saying they had a great time and, they went and thanks for going. They went Friday. They ended up going back Saturday. But if any of the people out there had something that maybe they could do better, I mean, other than the times, which they don't even control. So you can't really complain to the tournament about the times because obviously, I think 8:30 during the weeknights is rough. There's not much you can do about that. The television dictates that. But I don't know that there's anything that was a glaring, man, they need to do this that could be fixed. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com is with us. Yeah, it was a good night over there. Mount St. Mary's, the 6th seed, is moving on. How about that? Atlantic City got a coach fired, too, by the way. Tobin Anderson, who was the story of the tournament 2 years ago when Fairleigh Dickinson knocked off Purdue, the number 1 seed, a 16 beat a 1. And 2 years later, you get to the MAAC championship game, you don't win, you get fired. Right, and you wrote an article about Tobin, about him working for the Atlantic City Chamber of Commerce. He was an advocate of this tournament. Yeah, that's a good point. You see, by the way, you saw Patino coaching here 2 years ago. So if you got the chance to come to that, you got to see Patino up close and personal. And yeah, a lot of these players go here. And then because of the runs that their teams make, they end up transferring to bigger schools. We saw that basically the whole St. Peter's team was playing somewhere new after they made their run. Yeah, and I was pleasantly surprised because I did write about how the locals need to do a better job because all we do is complain about Atlantic City, never do anything. This is something they should be celebrated. And I don't know, there was a lot of local people there, but the building was full. So if you want to be, if you want to go next year, you should have a better opportunity, Mike, because they're going to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which means all 10 teams should be there for the weekend. That should drive just bigger crowd just because all 10 teams can have all of their fan bases there for a weekend. Well, that's the thing too is you got all 10 schools plus the women's school. So you have 20 different fan bases all there saying, "Hey, listen, I'm here to watch basketball. I'll hang out all day long on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and if my team makes it to the finals, I'll just hang around for another day." So I think the weekend should help that happen, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they grow this thing next year. They got a new commissioner in charge. He seems very willing to kind of listen to ideas and anything. So good stuff there. All right, let's look over the Phillies 10 days before opening day, Mike. Is this a finished product, or do you think they're learning anything about themselves in spring training that they might have to tinker with? I'm going back and forth with this because I saw that as well, and I said to me, the Phillies pitching staff sets them up to be a big time regular season winner, right? I mean, every time they go to the mound, there's going to be very few nights where they don't have the better pitcher on the mound. At least in the division. At least Luzardo, by the way, yesterday he threw 6 strikeouts, 4 innings. He looked really good for the people who were paying attention to Jesus Luzardo. How about your man, Johan Rojas? He had 3 hits today, 313. He's got a 920 OPS. And Bryson Stott, 9 walks. He's up to 346. He's been very good. If they could get a little boost from Bryson Stott, Rojas is kind of that's a cherry on the top. But, man, what this offense can be if they get the Stott they were hoping for. I agree. Mike McGarry, who is cutting down the nets in your bracket? Hoo-hoo-hoo. All right, good stuff. It's a wide open tournament. The Gators, they went back to back years ago. Can they do it here in the year 2025? I know that's a popular pick all of a sudden. We'll be talking hoops in 15 minutes right here on the Sports Pass. All right, Mike McGarry, good to see you, man. We'll talk to you. Yeah, McGarry, he was over at Boardwalk Hall on all weekend. I saw him on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. Great stuff. His coverage over at PressOfAtlanticCity.com. All right, more Sports Bash on the way. Yes, Jeff Nadu is going to break down our college basketball sports betting expert at 3 o'clock. He's going to give us a quip on every single game. We do it every year for the full hour, 3 to 4. If you want to fill out your bracket, get it handy from 3 to 4. You will hear no better college basketball insight than what's coming up at 3 o'clock here on the Sports Bash when Jeff Nadu joins us. Football at 4 with Mosher. The Nuggets are here. Sigh. We got a lot going on a Monday edition of the Sports Bash. Plus, your cue to call is coming up. Stick around. 97.3 ESPN. 252 on a Sports Bash Monday. I'm Mike Gill. What's up, everybody? We got that cue to call coming up for you in just a little while here on the Bash. Don't forget, March Madness is back. You can listen to all the madness right here on 97.3 ESPN. It all starts tomorrow night with the first four, Wednesday night with the second part of that first four, and then on Thursday, we have all the madness Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you can't watch it, you're driving around in your car, we got it for you right here on 97.3 ESPN. Fill out your brackets and listen along to all the March Madness right here on 97.3 ESPN. But before you do, no, I haven't filled out my brackets yet because I'm waiting to talk to Nadu. Jeff Nadu will be joining us on the other side. You guys hear him talking college basketball with us all season long, college football with us all season long. But when it comes to the college game, especially basketball, I don't know that I've ever met a human being that knows more about college basketball than this man. And I talk about, everybody can say, Duke, North Carolina, whatever. This guy can tell you about Mount St. Mary's. He can tell you about the little guys all the way up to the big guys. Bracket breakdown with Jeff Nadu is coming up in 7 minutes from now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Your home for the 2025 NCAA March Madness Tournament is 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill, and this is the Sports Bash. Coming up, Nadu is in the 3 o'clock hour. We're going to do the full hour bracket breakdown coming up next. Right now, I need callers 6 and 7. Here's the number, 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. Caller 6, caller 7. You are entered to win Phillies home opener tickets at Citizens Bank Park or Metallica tickets at Lincoln Financial Field. You must be present to win at our Phillies opening day watch party at Maynard's in Margate. We're going to be there next Thursday live to watch the Phillies opening day, and one lucky winner will walk away with Phillies home opener tickets plus parking for the game on Monday, March 31st, or you can walk out with Metallica tickets for Lincoln Financial Field. Be caller 6 and 7 to enter right now, 609-573-3776. Good luck. All right, 3 o'clock, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Good hour for you guys. If you want to get your brackets out, here's a good time to do it. Jeff Nadu set to join us here for the bracket breakdown. We'll take a look at all the games, get his quick thoughts. We'll get a quip on each game. No one knows more about college basketball than this man coming up right now on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. We'll go through the brackets. We'll get his thoughts on each game, help you fill out your brackets, and then we'll be ready to go for the tournament, which begins in earnest tomorrow night. And, of course, all the craziness, all the madness, that begins on Thursday, Friday. You can listen to the games right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, let's bring in Jeff Nadu, who's back here. If you're watching on YouTube and on the X platform, there's Jeff right there. If you're listening on the radio, here we go. Jeff Nadu, welcome back, man. This is it's Christmas Day, my brother.
What's going on, Mike? Good to see you, man. Thank you for having me as always. We made this a yearly thing, so always had to show love. How you doing?
Yeah,
all right?
I'm doing good. Everybody always can't wait for this hour of our show, the Monday after the brackets are out. Now, everyone's talking about my school got hosed. West Virginia got hosed. When you look at this bracket, ultimately just overview, what was your initial thoughts on what you saw, pass, all that stuff?
Well, I definitely think West Virginia did get hosed. I think the problem, Mike, that West Virginia had was twofold. They didn't play real well over the final half of the season, and a lot of the wins that they had early on were when they had Tucker DeVries, which they didn't have after the 8th game. So I think that was kind of concerning. And they beat Gonzaga with DeVries. They beat Arizona with DeVries. So I think that held sway. And look, Mike, you know this. This is any kind of sport. The big names are always going to get the almighty dollar. And UNC is a huge name. They're a huge brand. It didn't surprise me that one of the people that was on the committee was a part of the UNC academia and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it wasn't surprising. But I do think West Virginia had a gripe for sure.
All right, let's look real quick. Of the first 4, any of those teams stand out that you like to win a game in the first round?
I think San Diego State, they're a team that I think will beat UNC. And when I look at San Diego State, I mean, to beat UNC, Mike, you have to be able to shut down transition. San Diego State does a really good job of that. They also have a big 7-footer in the half court, Magoon Gawath, who I think can really kind of hurt you defensively. The UNC is a very dynamic downhill team. They want to get to the rim. I think that's kind of a bad matchup for them. Outside of that, I also do think the winner of Xavier, Texas could give a game to the, what would they play? The 7 seed, I think. Both those teams are really good. And Illinois is a team who have issues. Texas really came on towards the end of the season, and Xavier played well as far as the last 10 or so games as well. Those are two teams that could beat an Illinois team that's had injuries all year. But do I think any of these teams will make deep runs? Not particularly, no.
Yeah, it's far-fetched to see teams usually come out of that, first 4. But, every once in a while you get somebody make a little run maybe to the Sweet 16 or something. All right, Jeff Nadu, let's kind of quickly go through. We'll start in the South, get some thoughts here, because nobody knows these lower seeds better than you. No one that I've ever come across anyway. Auburn, a lot of people buzzing about them, and, of course, they will play one of the 16s. I would imagine they have no trouble here.
No, they're not going to have any trouble here. Alabama State, I think, will advance. St. Francis, to me, is probably the weakest team in this field. Again, it doesn't really matter. It's all conjecture. In the end, Auburn will beat them. Auburn will likely beat either of those teams by 30+. So, yeah, no issue there.
That's the tip that everybody's waiting for right there. 30+. That's the number you're looking for. You got an 8-9. These are always tough. Louisville, which was one of the worst programs in the country under Kenny Payne, they're now an 8 seed. They had a big bounce-back year. And Creighton's always a team that's kind of tough.
Yeah, Pat Kelsey did a really good job with this Louisville team. As you alluded to, Mike, this team won 8 games last year. They won 27 this year. They were a top 30 team in both offense and defense. That said, I think there are concerns just due to the fact of how down the ACC was. It was a bad conference overall. And we saw when they kind of stepped up and played Duke, they lost both games by 9 and the other one by double digits. I think Creighton's really good. They're going to have to navigate a drop coverage. Creighton kind of allows that mid-range and jump shooting game, which against Louisville is generally a good idea. Louisville's struggled to shoot the 3 ball all season. They're going to have to make some here. I have Creighton advancing. I don't know if it'll matter. Creighton, I think, could give a game to Auburn, Mike. Creighton is a good defensive team. They're very good at rebounding the basketball, which is key against Auburn. I don't know if they'd get run off the floor. I think Creighton advance here, though.
All right, there you go for the 8-9. They're always tricky ones. Let's go to an interesting one because Michigan, number 5 seed, these 5-12 we know, but UC San Diego, not a household name here.
No, but a lot of people know that this team is very capable of pulling off an upset. This is probably your most popular 5-12 upset. I'm not exactly ready to get there yet. I think Michigan's probably a little undervalued here. Remember, this team probably should be higher than a 5 seed, Mike. They went and won the Big Ten. A little bit about UC San Diego. Very well coached. They have an offensive genius and Eric Olin as their coach. This was a really terrific offensive team all year. They forced turnovers at a high level too, which is key against a Michigan team that has struggled with that. The problem, though, is, Mike, when Michigan get into the half court, they have 2 7-footers and Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden that I think will probably eat the lunch of UC San Diego. This is a UC San Diego team that very much are dead set on making threes. And if they're not going in, it can be a long night. This is a good 3-point defense in Michigan. I think Michigan will find a way. It won't be easy for a while, but I think they'll eventually find a way.
All right, Yale, the Bulldogs are back. The Texas A&M 4-13. It's like everybody who gets stuck playing the Ivy team always seems to be like on high upset alert. They got that lefty that can fill it up. I mean, they beat Auburn last season in a game. They beat Purdue in a game this season. This Yale team's definitely can clip somebody in the first round.
Yeah, I think this will be your upset in this bracket. I think Yale is a very underrated side. You mentioned how good the Ivy is in this tournament a lot of the time. And Yale is a group that are very physical. They could definitely match the physicality of A&M. When you play A&M, if you cannot rebound the basketball, you will lose. A&M has an innate ability of grabbing offensive rebounds, number 1 in America. This is a top 20 Yale rebounding team. They also have a guy in Ben Mabang who I think can really knock down and defend Wade Taylor, who's one of the best scorers in the country. Yale is well coached. They're good on defense. They can really shoot the rock, 10th nationally in 3-point offense. This A&M team, if Wade Taylor can be reeled in, how old do they score? That's always the big question. I think this is a great matchup. And by the way, Mike, this number opened minus 10.5. It was bet immediately down to 7.5, which means sharp actions on Yale. I think Yale pulls an upset here. I think A&M has issues in this matchup.
I like that one. Jeff Nadu, I watched a lot of that Yale game on Sunday. I always play that conference championship game on the Sunday there. Early morning, get a little coffee with the Yale boys. Ole Miss, San Diego State, and, of course, the very controversial NC. The winner of that game would face Ole Miss, the Rebels, one of 14 SEC schools.
Yeah, they were definitely inconsistent, Mike, all season, Ole Miss. But I will say their out-of-conference resume was impressive. They beat Colorado State, BYU, Louisville, and then had some good wins in conference against, Alabama and Kentucky, Tennessee. This is one of the only teams in this conference that was able to do that. They have games where they can look really good, Mike, and then there are games where they look really bad, and they'll lose to a random team like Vanderbilt or someone like that. But overall, this is a quality team under Chris Beard. To me, against either Carolina or San Diego State, it would be a bit of a flip. I'll lean Ole Miss just with their ability in the SEC to win games like this. They were one of the very few teams you'll find that was top 25 in both defense and offense. And Beard has a pedigree of winning. They're a very experienced team, top 3 nationally in experience.
All right, Jeff Nadu's with us. We're flipping through these brackets, so get your brackets out. He's trying to help you out here. Iowa State, Big 12, Lipscomb, the Bisons, 14. Now, Iowa State, that's a team I've seen a lot of. I like them a lot. West Virginia actually beat them. Another reason why they think they should have got in. But this one, 3-14, seems like Iowa State. Now, they were a team years ago that was a high. I think they were a 2 that lost to a 15 in like the 90s. But they should not be on high upset alert here, do you think?
I think for like the first half, I think Lipscomb give them a game. Lipscomb is a team out of the Atlantic Sun. They're coached by a guy, Lenny Akoff. He is a really smart offensive coach. They have a big and Jacob Ognjenovic who they're going to operate out of the paint. He's definitely very crafty around the rim. I think the problem here, though, is going to be just stepping up and playing just a way more athletic, more physical team. Iowa State is not going to have Keyshawn Gilbert, which is a big loss, but they have plenty of other kids that I think could step up. This is probably one of those games that's like, 38-34 at half, and then Iowa State just kind of turn it up and just kind of pull away and win by 15 in the second half. Lipscomb's a tough team. It wouldn't surprise me if they hung here. They're very good on offense, but defense is a lot to be desired.
All right, let's go to Marquette. I would think New Mexico 10-7. This would be a upset possibility. Big East here. Marquette against New Mexico.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I think New Mexico is probably a better team overall. I was not a big Marquette guy this year. This is definitely coin flippy. I lean New Mexico. I actually think, Mike, if New Mexico can win this game, it wouldn't surprise me if they made a run. They're very good defensively. They've got a great guard in Donovan Dent. They have kids that can just defend. They're long, lengthy, 6'9", 6'10". Mike, we have a possibility. It's very low, but we have a possibility of Pitino the son playing Pitino the father for a chance to go to the final four, I believe, or Elite Eight. So that's pretty interesting. I don't think it'll happen, but
it's funny. We talked I was at the MAAC game on Saturday night, and we were saying if Iona, you believe that they fired Anderson after that game.
Yeah, I saw
crazy.
that.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. I get it. I think they think they're in the New York area and then go out to get a flashy hire. But yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense.
Well, we'll get to that game, but we were all saying if Iona won that game, they would have been the 15 and played St. John's the 2. Now they end up losing, and Mount St. Mary's puts into the play. But if Iona would have won, I think a 2-15 most likely would have happened there. All right, let's get to Michigan State and Bryant. I know over the years you've been a Bryant guy on the betting side. But this is a 15-2, and that Michigan State team, usually in March, it's tough to pick against them.
Yeah, Bryant, Mike, is coached by Phil Martelli Jr., who obviously had a great father to teach him the game of basketball. He's done a great job up at Bryant. One thing about this team, they've really improved defensively. Now, that said, I do want to make it clear, they did play St. John's this year, lost 99-77. They gave up almost 100, gave up 112 to Grand Canyon. The problem that Bryant have, Mike, is when they play teams that are significantly better offensively and athletically than them, they want to play at such a light year pace. They really open themselves up defensively. It wouldn't surprise me if Michigan State get to 95 in this game. I think this is a high-scoring game. Bryant has a couple of kids like Pinzone and Timberlake and guys like that who played at high-end institutions. Timberlake was at Miami at one point, at Memphis. So I think they can score. I think this is a high-scoring game, like a 95-82 or something. I think Bryant can maybe come through the back door, but they're going to struggle in this game defensively.
All right, Duke gets that number 1 seed. Probably don't need Cooper Flagg in this game, American or Mount St. Mary's. I will say, just from watching Mount St. Mary's, they do have 2 guards that can score. If they're, Hobbs can shoot, Keys can shoot, and they do have 2 big guys, that are like 6'9". Adebayo's a pretty active kid. So that team's at least interesting for a for a MAAC school. They do have some size.
Yeah, I had Mount St. Mary's, Mike, as the second worst team in this field. I'm blown away that actually you're even here. I think they blew a lot of people away. They had some injuries.
They had 2 starters hurt.
I know. Terrell Ard didn't play for a lot of the season. Yeah, they were Pacheco didn't play either. I think American will win this game. Americans, Mike, this is a game that'll probably be first to 60 wins. American play extremely slow. American's a team that love the 3 ball. They have a bunch of kids that can really shoot the rock. They're finally healthy. Last year, they had 2 or 3 guys injured all year. In fact, there's no team with more continuity as a team in America than this team. This group has played together for years. A lot of them are seniors and upperclassmen. I think American is a team that I'd like to see play Duke because, Mike, American will lose by 40. I'll tell you one thing I love, Mike. I'm hoping American wins. I love fading the Patriot League in this tournament. They are so far gone from an athletic standpoint. They just don't match up with these types of teams. They will get destroyed. Either of these teams will get destroyed by Duke.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. It's funny though, when I watched St. Peter's play in Atlantic City 2 years ago, I said there's no way they have a shot to beat anybody.
But Mike, here's why St. Peter's did have a shot. They have a bunch of long, lengthy kids, right? Kids that aren't out athletic. They had kids on that team, the Drame brothers. They were very good in like the FIBA World basketball championship. So I'm talking about, no offense, Mike, I'm talking about like the kids, the 5 white kids that play at American. Like that's what I'm talking about here. Cooper Flagg, I think we may see him in the first game. I don't know if we'll play the whole time, but I think you give him 20 minutes. It's a sprained ankle, basically. I think he'll be fine. But yeah, they'll run American or Mount St. Mary's off the court.
To your point on Mount St. Mary's, by the way, 4 straight games they haven't give up 60. So your point was first to 60 wins.
Oh, yeah.
Probably right. If someone could even get to 60.
I don't even know if they will. I mean, American is extremely slow. Mount is slow too, and they're not good on offense. Yeah, this will be a rough one to watch, I think.
All right, 8-9, Mississippi State, Baylor. Here's the coin flips. Give us something that sticks one, that stands out one over the other.
If I could give advice to any bracket person just picking brackets, don't be so concerned with picking a perfect bracket. This game likely doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. It's just a 1-game thing. They're likely to not beat the team in the next round, which is a 1 seed. Lean Mississippi State. That said, it could go either way. I think Baylor's really talented. They've just had trouble with staying healthy, Mike, all season. I think they're the better overall team. This will be a good offensive game. A lot of high-end scores in this game. Josh Hubbard, VG Edgecombe. This will be a fun game to watch. To bet, it's a complete coin flip.
And as you said, if you lose that game, most people got it. Some people don't. It's a 50-50 game.
Yep.
And these 5-12s, everybody loves to say, I'm the guy who took the 12. Oregon's a 5, Liberty's a 12. Is this one where you should try to outsmart the room and take the 12?
No, I actually played against Liberty here. I already bet Oregon. I bet this one already. I think this is a bad matchup for Liberty. First things first, Mike, Liberty's got to go across the country to Seattle, while Oregon, basically, that's essentially a home game for them. Throw in the fact that physicality-wise, Liberty has not seen bigs like the ones that Oregon possess. They just don't really have the ability to hang in a lot of these games. In fact, over the last 6 seasons, Liberty's 0-10 against top 50 teams. Like they don't really play real well against these types of groups. I think it's kind of an athleticism advantage here. Oregon's got a bunch of big, strong kids. I think they really just out-physical Liberty. I think they probably pull away and win by 10 to 15.
Yeah, Biddle's tough to deal with if you're Liberty. He's a big dude there. All right, Arizona and the Akron Zips. A little action here. Caleb Love, former Tar Heel, so people probably remember him. I would think, though, if you're thinking Arizona 4-13, there's a possibility. This Akron team is feisty. They hit a lot of threes.
In years past, I would agree with you. This year, Akron, I don't agree with you. The thing that they've done this year is they've went completely different from what they've always been. Now they go up and down. They want to run. That is a death nail against Arizona. The goal to beating Arizona is doing what teams like Houston do, keeping them out of transition and limiting the running at the rim. I want to turn Arizona into a jump shooting team. That's where they're worst. Akron won't do that. Akron will run with them. That's not a good potion here. This will be a high-scoring game. There's a reason it's 166. The Akron 2 years ago, agreed. The one that beat UCLA or almost beat them a couple of years ago, I think the game was like 59-53. That team would be a problem for Arizona. This one wouldn't. Terrible matchup for Akron.
Yeah, I agree. I just say they do like to shoot the three, and they
Sure.
make a lot of them. So if it's one of those days where they're just bombing away,
right,
that's one of those things you're like.
No, and Mike, Nate Johnson's a really good player for them. Tavari Johnson as well. They're both very good. They can fill it up, but it's not a real good idea to run with Arizona.
All right, Jeff Nadu's with us. We're going through, this is the East bracket. We'll do the South and the East, and then we'll take a look at the other two after that. BYU, VCU, the Rams, of course, went all the way to the Final Four. Donnie Lynn was a video coordinator on that team. He's now the coach at Mount St. Mary. But this Rams team a little different. Talk about the three, the Cougars. They can shoot it as well. They fill it up, BYU.
Yeah, that's what they do. I mean, they're top 3 nationally and shots from the 3-point line. That's what they all are about. That said, Mike, I might say something that's crazy. I think VCU is the best defensive team in the country. They are an incredible defensive team. They're long, they're lengthy, they're physical. They're not that typical kind of press type team. They're gonna make it difficult on you and extend in the half to the full court, but they're not gonna be up in your grill like they normally are. They're actually a better offensive team than most, and this VCU team, I just think is really good at every level. I think this is a tough draw for them, but I think they'll beat BYU. BYU is a bit gimmicky to me. I think the physicality of VCU will really bother. Kind of, I'm not going to call them soft, and guys like Nell and Demon and Saunders, but they are kind of soft. I think the physicality of them in VCU and in the half court, I think BYU could struggle. And if the threes aren't falling, they get frustrated. That could be a run out quick. I like VCU to beat Virginia Commonwealth.
BYU, very one-trick ponyish. VCU, high efficiency, both sides. If you watch them in the A-10 this past week, a lot of fun. Those were great games. So they got challenged to get to this spot. That was a good matchup for them, a good tune-up for them, I should say. All right, Wisconsin the 3, Montana the 14. Montana, the Grizzlies here. A lot of people probably have never seen them play. I'm sure you know plenty about them. My opinion, probably low upset chance here.
I'm not so sure. I think if there is a big dog, I think this could be a decent one. Throw in Mike. Montana plays in elevation a lot. This game is in Denver. Wisconsin kind of got thrown out there. They could have played, I think, in like Madison or not Madison, Milwaukee. So that's kind of problematic. Montana is a pretty good shooting team, good drive and kick team, good floor spacing team. It wouldn't surprise me to see Montana make a game of this. Do I think they win? No, but they're well coached under Travis DeCure. They've been to this tournament a lot. Took about a really good offensive team. I think they can definitely match Wisconsin's abilities. Now, look, Wisconsin's really good, and we'll probably get to 80, 85 here. I kind of like the over, if anything. I think Montana can score too. I don't love either team on defense, so I lean over, if anything. But Wisconsin will advance.
Yeah, let's go to St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, another one of those SEC schools that got in. St. Mary's, of course, seemingly always right in this spot. Usually it's like, they're in that 11 area, 12 area. They're moving their way up over the years here. But I think this one's interesting here. A lot of people, though, think Vanderbilt as the 10 should be able to beat St. Mary's as the 7.
I don't see it. I think it's a bad matchup at a couple levels, Mike. One of which is Mark Binnington, the coach at Vandy. He's talked about how every player that he has is what he calls a point guard. They can all handle the basketball. That's cool and all. You're not going to be able to run against St. Mary's. Nobody runs in transition against them. Go watch the Gonzaga games. Gonzaga's all about transition. Game was played in the 60s, 50s in some aspects. Throw in the fact that by having everyone as a point guard, you really leave yourself limited at the rim. St. Mary's could have a lot of points at the rim here. They have a bunch of big kids. I think St. Mary's beats Vandy.
Well, that's a good point. And a lot of people think of the St. Mary's, the smaller schools. That's a big team. That St. Mary's team is pretty big. They're not a typical small school fire up threes. They're a bigger team. So it's almost
and again playing
the big college is the small team. The smaller college is the big team.
Right. And playing frantic pace against St. Mary's is a very bad decision. And you could ask Gonzaga that. They lost multiple games this year. Yeah, Mitchell Saxon, Harry Wessels, they're really big, strong, hulking kids, kind of like lumberjack types. Yeah, I think this is a bad matchup for Vandy. I will say, though, Mike, I've had no success with Vandy all season. It seems like I've had them wrong really at every level. But I do really like St. Mary's a lot.
I took St. Mary's, I think, to the Final Four last year. That bit me. So I have a little sting.
I will tell you, they could beat Alabama.
Well, Bama's playing Robert Morris, so it sounds like you think this is a no problem. No, the Horizon champion, not putting any fear into Bama.
No, I give Andrew Toole a lot of credit. Robert Morris was really good this season. This is a team that won 10 games last year. They won 26 this year. Really, really impressive. They have a kid in Cam Woods who used to be at NC State, transferred over. No, I don't think this is a tough game. Alabama is really good, though they're not going to have probably Grant Nelson, which could be problematic. Fulgaris, the big for Robert Morris, is pretty good. Maybe keeps this game close for a while, but yeah, I think Alabama moves on.
All right, Jeff Nadu is here. We got another segment. We'll do the Midwest and the West on the other side. We'll take a timeout. We come back. We'll continue on the first round of these brackets. Then we'll get some thoughts if he has anything later on, his Final Fours, who he thinks will win the whole thing. But stick around. We'll do the Midwest and the West coming up right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Jeff Nadu's back. Good reaction so far. A lot of people chiming in on the text board, liking what's going on, helping out your brackets. We're going to go to the Midwest now and take a look at an interesting bracket over there with Jeff Nadu as we start from the top. Let's get it rocking and rolling again and go with the Houston Cougars, who have been on the scene for a couple of years here now, so they shouldn't be like, hey, this is the new guy on the block. It's about the third or fourth year that they've been a big player. They are the number 1 seed, SIU Edwardsville. I don't know that I've ever heard of them.
Yeah, they're a team that definitely I was kind of surprised to see here. Small team out of Illinois. Mike, I got to be honest. I'm trying to be nice here. I don't think SIUE get the 40, man. This is going to be rough. This SIUE team was a complete disaster on offense this year. Just to kind of put this into perspective, one of the better teams in that conference defensively was Eastern Illinois. They held this team at one point to 58 points. They're horrible. There's not going to be any pace in this game at all. Their goal is going to be to hold the ball as long as possible. But I think Houston will just kind of drain them slowly. I think this is like an 82-40 type of game. I think this one's pretty easy.
All right, let's go to a team that's been around since the 90s, Gonzaga. They haven't been able to kick the door down in any of their trips. They'll play the Bulldogs of Georgia versus the Bulldogs of Gonzaga. Is the Gonzaga, they're the 8-9, so this is one of those coin flippers.
Mike, the best team above the 8 seed is Gonzaga in this tournament. I mean, they are a group that it wouldn't surprise me if they lose this game. It wouldn't surprise me if they beat Houston the next round and go all the way to the Final Four. They're very talented, okay? But at times, they play down the competition. They can really, you want to kind of rip your hat. And I think if you ask Few about this team, he would tell you the same thing. They can be very irritating. They have to trade defense a lot of time for offense and vice versa. He just doesn't have a complete roster. That said, the starting 5 are really good. I think they'll beat Georgia. Sharp money actually early on took Gonzaga, bet them quickly up from 4.5 to 6.5. I think Gonzaga will win. And the question remains, this will be a trendy team that can beat Houston in the next round. So keep that in mind. But I think Gonzaga will advance.
All right, Clemson, they got a steady player that you like, Chase Hunter, when you get to a tournament like this, to have a guy like that. But McNeese State, man, they are hair on fire, helter-skelter if you watch them play.
Yeah, both these teams kind of want to speed you up and kind of press. I think once both teams get past it, it's going to be a really low-scoring game. 2 good defensive teams, 2 teams that just think at a lot of positions will cancel each other out. I think Clemson will move on. I just think McNeese, a lot of the time, they were a big trendy upset team last year. They weren't able to get it done. They got blown out by Gonzaga. I think Clemson probably take care of business again here. McNeese has been impressive at times. They did play Alabama pretty close. They played Liberty close. They played Mississippi State close, but they didn't ultimately win, and that's the issue. I think the under is probably the best play in this game, but Clemson will move on. A talented team that went far last year, as we know.
All right, Purdue, probably one of the old school point guards, good point guard for them. You used to look for guards in this tournament. A friend of mine played at High Point. How will his Panthers fare in this one?
Yeah, I think this is probably there's reasons for that team to be happy about this matchup, but then there's one to be upset about. This matchup defensively for High Point is terrible. They play a drop coverage. They're going to give you the jump shot. That's a complete disaster against Purdue, who are very good against drop coverage. They're very good at pick and roll offense. Braden Smith will just kind of pick you apart on that level. And when you look at High Point, I think there are ways they can score here. Purdue really struggled, Mike, defensively all season. They were, quite frankly, a complete disaster on defense. One of the worst 2-point defenses left in this tournament. They're High Point, a very downhill team. They want to get to the rim, very experienced, good guard play. I think this is a high-scoring game. I bet the over personally. But I think Purdue would just kind of work High Point real bad here, and that's kind of the problem. High Point will struggle to defend Purdue.
All right, you got one of these play-in teams, Texas or Xavier, both big conference teams, Big 12, Big East, actually SEC and Big East, sorry. Going up against Illinois, the Fighting Illini, who are the number 6 seed here. And, you got when you're led by a freshman sometimes in the tournament, that's interesting.
Yeah, Trey Johnson's terrific. I'll tell you this, Mike. If Xavier can get by, obviously Texas, and then I think they get Illinois a game. If they win that, don't be surprised to see them make a run. Xavier is really talented. I thought they were really good towards the end of the season. They did kind of hoop up on a lot of the bad teams in the Big East, but I thought they were really game in that tournament. They were leading Marquette for most of that game. They played really well to end the season. They're an older team, very experienced, number 2 in experience outside of American. They've been together a while, a lot of upperclassmen on this team. I think Xavier at Texas will beat Illinois. I just haven't really felt much about Illinois all season. They have issues at times defensively. They've been injured a lot of the season. And they struggle to shoot the 3 ball, which to me means I'm going to zone the hell out of them and make them make shots. And that's kind of what Maryland did. And they didn't make any shots. So, yeah, I think Illinois is kind of lukewarm to me.
All right, we're in the Midwest. This is the Kentucky and the Troy Trojans. And obviously you hear Kentucky and you feel like that's usually, well, although they've been upset in this tournament a lot recently here, but Troy, very low upset alert here if you're a 14 versus 3, or you think this is another possibility?
Yeah, to me, this is a pretty low chance. Now, I will say, Lamont Butler, you want to have him back for this game for Kentucky. But yeah, Troy is actually in this tournament. They're one of the worst shooting teams in this grouping. They just can't make shots. And Kentucky is a very volume elite shooting team. I think this one could go sideways quickly. You kind of look at them, Troy stepping up against quality comp. They lost by 16 to Arkansas, 21 to Oregon, 20 to Houston. In stepping up, they really struggled. Kentucky is a team, Mike, in this bracket. It wouldn't surprise me if they go to the Final Four. Tennessee's not an incredibly difficult 2 seed. They play them every year a few times. Purdue, I think, is weak. I think they could get by Houston if possible. It wouldn't surprise me if Mark Pope and Houston or Kentucky make a deep run.
Kentucky, yeah. All right, let's go to UCLA, Utah State, and obviously UCLA, tons of history. I kind of like Utah State here for, it's a 10-7, so they're kind of coin flippy as well. But the Utah State definitely, I think, has a good shot here, and I wouldn't be surprised in my mind if they pulled this one. Very good offensive team, and they have some pretty quality wins. They beat St. Mary's. I think they beat San Diego State earlier, too.
Yeah, and, Mike, I think always when we talk about the tournament's all about matchups, and there's sometimes where you'll get a matchup that just isn't really conducive to what you do. If you know anything about UCLA, they don't see zone very often. They've only saw zone about 6% of their possessions this season, according to Synergy. Zone is really all Utah State play. So this game is really going to come down to, can UCLA make jump shots, generally 3-point jump shots. And, they were okay at it at times. They weren't elite either. I just don't think this is a particularly strong matchup. I agree. I think Utah State gets the job done. I definitely lean them here, but don't sleep on UCLA. They could stay in this game due to their real ability to defend. Mick Cronin's one of the best coaches in the country. But Calhoun and Utah State are really good. I like both these teams, but I think Utah State's in a better situation matchup-wise.
All right, so if you turned on the TV this weekend, you watch a great Tennessee-Auburn game. So you're probably feeling that Tennessee is in a good spot here against Wofford, the Terriers.
Yeah, Wofford's another team that I think is, Mike, just kind of, I'm not going to say lucky to be here, but I think happy to be here. I think this game is pretty tough watch. Tennessee makes things really difficult on teams like this, and Wofford will have to make a bunch of threes to be relevant in this game because they're not going to get anything at the rim. Tennessee's long, they're lengthy, and they're an elite defensive team per usual. Wofford is very 3-point dependent, like very 3-point dependent. And Mike, let's look at a game, case in point. They played Duke back before Thanksgiving. Do you know what the final score in that game was?
Wofford and Duke, no.
86-35. Wofford was 5 for 33 from 3. So, again, you're not making threes. Now, look, Mike, if Wofford make 14 threes, they can hang inside the number. I would be absolutely blown away, Mike, if Wofford beat Tennessee. It would be, to me, one of the most insane upsets ever because it's just a terrible, terrible schematic matchup for
That's
the.
a 15-2, by the way, for everybody
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
A
This should
whopper.
be. I mean, Mike, again, Tennessee is the number one 3-point defense, and they're the top 30 2-point defense. Like they're just really hard to score on. This game to me is blowout city.
All right, let's go over to the West. This is the final side of your bracket, everybody. The Gators, Florida. A lot of people all of a sudden, this is the chic new team. Everybody wondering, can Florida do it? They're going to get Norfolk State in the first round, so it seems like this one should be a layup.
Yeah, it's a layup for several reasons. One, on defense, Robert Jones in Norfolk State, always here. He's a really good coach in the MAAC, but they play zone, which is kind of a bad idea against Florida. You're going to get destroyed. And Norfolk State's from the MAAC, Mike, very downhill conference, got to get to the hoop. Good luck. I mean, Florida's huge. I think Florida probably get to 100 in this game. It's like, to me, like a 101-68 type of game. I think Florida cruise.
For those of you who remember, Walter Clayton Jr. played for Iona over at Boardwalk Hall, so you probably you might remember him. I know the people who have gone to the tournament over there have seen him play before. All right, your two-time defending champions, UConn, who has had a roller coaster of a season. Dan Hurley has been in the news a lot, talking about stuff. Does he get in the news for winning a game against Oklahoma?
I mean, sharp money like UConn. I think they're betting on the pedigree here. But I'll tell you, Mike, the problem that Dan Hurley's team has this year is they're a pretty good offense like usual. They always will be, but they can't guard anybody. I mean, solo ball is a disaster on defense. Watch Aiden Mahaney defend. They can't defend. And Oklahoma is really dynamic, man. Jeremiah Fears is terrific. They can score against anybody. My favorite play in this game is over. I've already played the over. To me, it's more of a coin flip than anything. I'm stubbornly interested in Oklahoma. They got a tough draw here, though. It's a coin flip. I don't think either of them are going to beat Florida. That said, if anybody can do it, it'd be Hurley's team. And they always seem to play well. I've done a complete 180 on Hurley, by the way, Mike. I used to hate him. Now I love him. But yeah, tough game. I lean over, if anything.
All right, Geoff Nadu's with us. We're continuing on the West. At Geoff Nadu on the X platform. Memphis, Colorado State. Now, Memphis played UAB in their conference championship game. They get in, and obviously now they get themselves in a spot where they're on upset alert.
Yeah, they are. And I think a lot of that hinges on Tyrese Hunter. Memphis is one of their better guards. He's really good on defense, which is big here because Nick Clifford for Colorado State's one of the best guards in the country. And Nico Medved has a really good team per usual out there in the Mountain West. This really hinges to me on Hunter. It's the thought, though, that he's not going to play. I think Colorado State will win if that's the case. Memphis is solid. I give them a lot of credit, but I think Medved's just a way better coach than Penny. But Memphis has proven me wrong a lot this year. So we'll see if Hunter plays. To me, though, at this hour, I lean Colorado State.
All right, let's go to Maryland, which is a Big Ten school, and Grand Canyon, a new kid on the block, but they've been, an interesting team since becoming a Division I program.
Yeah, I mean they've got a lot of money in their program. They're well coached, and they've gotten some good players, man. I mean, Tyon Grant Foster's a Kansas transfer. I mean, they've got kid Jacoby Coles. They're a talented team, but Maryland is just a way tougher matchup than last year when Grand Canyon beat St. Mary's. Different here. Maryland is really good. They're long, they're lengthy, they're huge. Derek Queen could be a real problem for them in this matchup. I actually have Florida or Maryland going pretty far. I think they probably get to maybe it's hard because I hate Kevin Willard. He never wins anything, but I think they can win 2 or 3 games in this tournament. It's hard to screw this up. They're very talented.
So that would be Maryland beating Memphis then in that second game.
No, I haven't beaten Colorado State.
Oh, that's right. No, you just had Colorado State winning that second game. So it would be Colorado State losing to Maryland, which then would face them against Florida. A Maryland-Florida possible game in that next round. All right, that would be a fun game. I hate Maryland. I can't stand driving through Maryland. I always got pulled over. It was just a nightmare driving through that state all the time. All right, let's go to Texas Tech and UNC Wilmington, who beat Delaware. What's that? The Colonial, I guess. Delaware in the Colonial. They're moving to Conference USA next year, but Texas Tech, a Big 12 school.
Yeah, it's now called the Coastal
That's
Athletic
right.
Association.
It's no longer the Colonial. That's right.
Yeah, who cares? I still call it the Colonial, the CAA. I thought there was a glimmer of hope for Wilmington just because we maybe thought that two of Texas Tech's best players weren't going to play, but according to McCaslin, they're good to go and they'll be in there. With them all healthy, I think Texas Tech, if they stay healthy, Mike, which was a big problem all year, Texas Tech could go to the Final Four. Would not surprise me. They're very talented, and they have a pretty decent draw here. They're probably going to have to go through St. John's, but I think outside of that, this is a pretty good draw for them here. They'll beat up Wilmington. Takeo Sito's a good coach. I think they can keep the game close for 8, 10, 12 minutes, but Texas Tech, when fully healthy, are really good on both ends.
All right, I skipped over one, Missouri and Drake, and I shouldn't have skipped over one because this one's going to be interesting. Drake, 30-3. This is a team that knows how to win. Missouri, though, plays a tough schedule. They have a, this is probably one where the best scorer, though, is coming from Drake. A lot of stuff favoring Drake here.
Mike, this is the most fascinating matchup of the first round. Okay, and here's why. You have one team in Mizzou who, under Dennis Gates, want to go, right? As fast as possible. You're familiar with Ken Palm. A lot of people familiar with that database. Over the last decade, no team has played slower than Drake. 22 seconds per possession, like with Mike. Remember, that means if they run, let's say, 25 seconds off the shot clock and get an offensive rebound, they could take a minute off the clock every possession. They're insanely slow. So it's a real clash in styles here. I wonder, though, can Bennett Sturts, the player you're talking about, can he do that against a very athletic, physical, better team in Mizzou? It's a real clash in styles. Mark Mitchell, how healthy is he? Whatever Drake does, they always keep these games very low scoring. They did to Miami a couple of years ago, kept that game in the high 50s, low 60s. If you're going to give me 6.5, I'll lean with Drake. Can they actually pull the upset? I think they can. Mizzou's a bit gimmicky to me. Sometimes they look really good and they'll beat an Alabama. Sometimes they look really poor and will lose to some random SEC team. So I think Drake has something here for them.
There wasn't a lot of random SEC teams, though, this year. They all got, what did they get, 14?
Well, I guess the point in that I have is that, like, they'll beat Alabama and then they'll lose to, like, South Carolina or something. It's like
2-18 in conference.
Yeah, it's like pretty random. But Mizzou is really good, and if they're significantly more physical and athletic, they could just run them out of the gym. But Drake has an innate ability of making a game super slow. I mean, they beat Vandy, Mike, 81-70. So beat Miami by double digits, beat Florida Atlantic. They beat some quality teams, beat K-State. So they can beat teams.
All right, Hunter Dickinson's in this tournament for like the 12th time for Kansas now. Was with Michigan. Last year, Kansas. Back with Kansas. Not that good of a Kansas team. Not a traditional Kansas team. Arkansas, man, they had a great name. Boogie Fland. I think he's hurt, though. I don't know that you're going to see Boogie play in this. He would have been great on those Nolan Richardson teams, the 40 Minutes of Hell teams.
Yeah, well, Boogie actually, there's a thought that he will play, which I think that could hurt Arkansas more than anything, Mike. He hasn't played for so long. You try to insert him back in, and it kind of throws off the momentum. I'd rather have them Fierro get him back. That would be more important. Kansas, it's kind of been like a new season 3 or 4 times. This is where there's no season after this, Mike. You don't play well and get knocked out, you're out. I don't think this ultimately will matter much, this game, because I think both teams will lose to St. John's in the next round. Mike, you know who the real winner is in these first 2 days in this tournament? The North End in Providence, which is very Italian. You got 2 paisans in Calipari and Patino. The dinner parties at the North End are going to be terrific. They're going to keep all the Italian restaurants in business for the next couple of days. Patino Cal could be interesting. That would be a really fun second-round matchup up in Providence.
All right, last one on the bracket is Patino, St. John, and the Omaha Mavericks, and you've kind of let the cat out of the bag. It sounds like you like St. John's there. Low upset alert.
Yeah, I think Omaha could really struggle with the kind of athleticism that St. John's possess. I think if you like Omaha, one of the angles that I found with St. John's, I played it on Saturday, is taking St. John's opponent in the first half. For whatever reason, they don't play real well in the first half. They're actually down at the half against Creighton. And then in the second half, they just go on, and Marquette as well. They just go on these insane runs in the second half. I think that could be the undoing here for Omaha. I think the number will be right around where it is. I think St. John's probably likely wins by 20, but this game could be with like 8 or 9 at the half, and then they just pull away. I think St. John's is really, really good, Mike.
All right, yeah, they're a very good defensive team. Patino, good head coach, as we know. Who is Jeff's Final Four?
Yeah, so I'm actually pretty chalky, Mike, to be quite honest. I think the top 5 teams in this country are way better than everyone else. I do have Auburn in the Final Four. I also took St. John's to go to the Final Four. I have Duke and I have Houston. I'm pretty chalk heavy there. I think it is Auburn and Houston in the final, and I believe that Houston is going to finally break through and cut down the nets. I think Kelvin Sampson, I think on the surface, this could be his truly best team. They're just an elite 3-point shooting team. I think Milos Uzan is one of the most underrated players in the country. Juwan Roberts, Emmanuel Sharp, Tugler, Malik Wilson. I mean, they're just Arsenault. They're so deep and lengthy. They only have 4 losses all year. And Mike, their first loss of the season in the second game of the season was to Auburn, 74-69. I think they would really love some revenge there. They were winning by double digits in the second half. I think they let that one slip away. I think Houston is the champion.
There you go. The college basketball bracket first round. You can listen to it all right here on 97.3 ESPN. We just gave you all the winners for the first 2 days of the tournament. Jeff Nadu's right there, and he was kind enough to join us and break it all down for it. He likes Houston to win it all. Duke, Houston, Auburn, St. John's is the Final Four. All right, Jeff. Thanks, buddy. We will talk to you soon.
Yeah, good to see you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
As always. All right, Jeff Nadu there with the bracket breakdown for us here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, you can listen to the first 4 tomorrow night and Wednesday and all of the madness on Thursday right here on 97.3 ESPN. Right now, there's your cue to call. Caller 6 and caller 7, 609 573 3776 609 573 3776. Caller 6 and caller 7 right now. You are entered to win Phillies home opener tickets, a pair of tickets to the home opener with a parking pass. Plus, you can win tickets to Metallica at Lincoln Financial Field on May 23rd and May 25th. There's 2 shows. You get tickets to both shows. You must be present to win for our Phillies opening day watch party at Maynard's in Margate, 9306 Amherst Avenue in Margate. Bring out your Phillies gear, your Phillies red. We'll watch Phillies opening day, and someone's winning tickets to the home opener or Metallica. Good luck. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, over the weekend, the Eagles lost another key free agent. We'll dive into that and more coming up in just a second with Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast and InsideTheBirds.com. I want to congratulate John in Ocean City, Rob in West Creek. They joined Jim in Petersburg and Ken in Cape May Courthouse, our latest qualifiers to win Phillies opening day, home opener, I should say, home opener tickets at our Phillies opening day watch party at Maynard's in Margate. We'll see everybody out there. We have another chance for you to qualify this hour on the Sports Bash. Geoff Mosher is the co-host of the Inside the Birds podcast, and he is right there on your video screen if you're watching on the X platform and on YouTube. If you're listening on the radio, it's Football at 4 Motion Friday night. You got another signing, but it didn't come back to Philadelphia. And I guess as the days went on, I wonder if people were like, maybe there's not a market for Mekhi Becton. Maybe he'll come back here. Well, it only takes one, and the L.A. Chargers, 2 years, $20 million, too rich for the Eagles' blood to bring Becton back to Philadelphia.
Yeah, it was going to take. And again, the Eagles, as we've talked about, Mike, they were interested in bringing everybody back. It wasn't that they just let them walk. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah. No, he's telling me to turn you up. I said I can't turn you up much higher.
Oh, well, yeah, I'll yell if you want. No, the Eagles were interested in everybody. They would love to have brought them all back, but as we've discussed, their cash budget this year is tighter than in years past, and a lot of cash is due to players that they have on the roster now that are good players and in the form of option bonuses and other bonuses. So anything north of several million outside of Zach Bond was not going to be tenable for a lot of these guys. And I know that with Becton being out there for a couple of days, it may have appeared that the market wasn't great for him. I think 2 years, $20 million, and the fact that the guaranteed money isn't reported makes me believe. We'll wait and see the contract, but that $20 million might be not the official full number or the realistic number. We'll see. But still, that was going to be more than the Eagles were willing to offer. I think the Chargers make a tremendous amount of sense. I felt from the beginning, and we talked about it a lot on the podcast, that Mekhi Becton was not going to be everybody's cup of tea. He was still a right guard for 1 year only. He's a massive human being. He plays in a scheme in Philadelphia. He played in a scheme that was mostly inside running, inside zone, duo, things like that, where he can kind of double team and just use his massive body to create those lanes inside. And that's a lot of what Jim Harbaugh likes to do. The Chargers run the ball. They signed Najee Harris. They're going to be a smash mouth offense. So they could probably see the potential in Mekhi Becton, maybe more so than a Shanahan style team that's going to run to the outside a lot of stretch zone, a lot of wide zone where you're moving your linemen horizontally instead of north-south, Mike. So I think that signing made a lot of sense for them. It'll be interesting because the Chargers have a very good offensive line, and they have some pretty good guards, obviously, with Trey Pipkins and Zion Johnson. So maybe they're going to make a move to accommodate Mekhi Becton there. We'll see.
All right, let's get into this a little deeper, because it is interesting here. So Becton leaves. First off, how did Becton, is this a huge loss for them? People look at Becton and say, oh, this guy was really good. Could the Eagles have found a way, or was he just, I think by all accounts, he was the fifth guy on that line.
Yeah, I think it's fair. There were times that Mekhi struggled with things in pass protection, sorting, as far as when you put 5 or 6 men on the line of scrimmage, figuring out which guy to block. And these are small instances. He obviously had a very good year. But he's, like I said, his footwork, he's still learning to play guard. It doesn't come naturally to him. When Tyler Steen gets in there, Tyler Steen played tackle in college, but he's been playing and practicing at guard for 2 years now. Kenyon Green was the best guard coming out of college a couple of years ago out of A&M, and things just didn't work out well for him in Houston, and we'll see what else the Eagles do. But it'll be a drop-off in how massive of a human being that Mekhi Becton was compared to whoever replaces him, and that's a big part of it. When you're double teaming, and then when you're able to kick out there and get your massive body on a smaller player, that helps, especially a guy like Saquon, who doesn't need that much space, right? So there's a difference there, but I don't think he's irreplaceable by any stretch of the means. Remember,
Yeah,
they didn't even know he was going to be the starting right guard.
well, and that's where I wanted to go, because last year Tyler Steen was the guy until he got beat out. Steen is in a similar situation now. He's probably the guy unless he gets beat out. So I would imagine this turns into, like last year, now there are going to be some more storylines as the roster is currently built. Obviously, the draft adds to more. But at what they have right now, you have two guys battling for that right guard spot, and maybe even Keegan, the kid they drafted last year, if you want to throw him into the mix. But I would imagine Green and Steen, the double E's, and Keegan double E's, by the way, will be battling for right guard.
I think Keegan faces a much more uphill challenge. Yes, he'll probably be in the mix, so to speak. He's only really played. Do you remember Sua Opeta when the Eagles had him?
Absolutely.
Right. So he was only a left guard and really struggled for the first 2 years of being an Eagle to move. And then they finally coached him up to move. So maybe by year 2 here with Keegan, they'll figure out, if he can play right guard or not. But yeah, Green, Steen, the double E's, I like that. And whoever they still wind up attaining, because remember, Mekhi Becton didn't even sign with the Eagles until after the draft. So you can't count out any move that the Eagles have yet to make at that position.
Yeah, and, obviously, last year Steen started, and then he got hurt, right? That's what happened. He got hurt, and that late allowed Becton. Who knows if Becton would have even got a shot there had Steen not got hurt in training camp. That was a big story. I would imagine this time around, Green is a more natural guard, so he will get the reps at right guard almost immediately, as opposed to last year when they got Becton, they didn't even know they were going to use him at guard.
Right. Green will automatically come in. There's no other position. There's no tinkering here. I want to say it's less of a coaching up job for Stoutland because he's already a guard and doesn't have to transition. However, he's really coming from, 3 years of really not being a very good right guard. So there will have to be a lot of work Stoutland will put in with Green. But it's less about learning the position and more about rebuilding him.
What do we think of Steen? I mean, if he's the guy they end up going with, I thought for the most part when he went into games, you very rarely noticed that he was in games. It means he played pretty well. The only time you noticed him was, I think, in the Super Bowl. He got beat pretty good. Chris Jones is a handful for anybody, but for the most part, my look at this is for people who say, well, why did they bring Becton back? They let a lot of guy walk. I don't know that he was $10 million or whatever, $8 million better than Tyler Steen.
Yeah, and that's what we'll have to find out. I mean, there were times where he played okay, he held the fort down well. There were times where, and not just the Super Bowl and other games, where he was exposed, so to say, as being a backup forced into starting action. So it almost doesn't really matter because when you're the starter and you're getting every single rep and every single snap, you're judged accordingly. So they drafted him. They felt he could play this position. They've groomed him for a year or 2 years, actually. This will be year 3, and he'll have his opportunity. He's got to stay healthy first and foremost. That's what cost him the job against Becton, really. As you mentioned, he suffered an ankle injury, I think it was, and then Becton slid in there and never really gave the job back. So that'll be priority number 1 for Tyler Steen. Be healthy and ready to compete this year when it comes time.
Geoff Mosher, Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Okay, so that's a spot where, okay, maybe it's a lateral move, maybe a little bit of a drop-off. But, Jeff, you look around at 4 key spots. As of right now, unless Howie does something crazy or makes some sort of move, it's going to be hard-fetched to say they're going to be better in Milton Williams' spot, Josh Sweat's spot, Darius Slay's spot, or the safety spot where Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is. Is that fair?
That it's going to be
that they're going to have a better player. Because, look, everyone's like, well, free agency's not over. They can still do things. Okay, I'll play along. Absolutely. You can still get players at every position and do that. It's going to be far-fetched to say you're going to get a better player than what you had last year at any of those positions.
I mean, you could say that, but I don't think anybody – and I don't want to use Zach Baun as the be-all, end-all for every example, right? But that's a player that we didn't know was going to be actually better than the player than who he was replacing. Mm-hmm. So
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right. Now, Sidney Brown's a different type of player than CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's not a playmaker picking off pads. He's not a coverage guy the way Gardner-Johnson is. So I'm really curious to see how they continue to address the safety position and what kind of safeties they bring in. So yeah, but it's fair to say it'll be hard to replace what CJ Gardner-Johnson brought to the team from a production standpoint at outside corner. Yeah, probably be hard to get a player as good as Darius Slay was, even at his age. But you just never know. We'll have to see who they draft or what moves they make, who they put in that spot. Until we know, it's hard to even make any long-term conclusions. Can Moro Ojomo be as good as Milton Williams? Remember, Milton Williams for his first 3 years was Moro Ojomo, right? I mean, we didn't talk about Milton Williams a whole lot until year 3 and then certainly year 4. So we'll see. We'll see what playing next to Jalen Carter does for him.
No, you're definitely right about that. You know, Ojomo's the one guy who hasn't really been given the opportunity, who maybe if he's been much like Milton Williams, you give him more snaps, maybe he can handle more. What do you think of the Adoree Jackson deal when you look at that cornerback spot over there? Is this, to me, all these signings, Geoff, kind of suggest we want you to compete for a job. We don't want to just hand you a job. So Kaylee Ringo, you might enter as the guy that we want to win it, but we're bringing in a guy to make sure that he pushes you. And that seems to be the story almost everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And to add to that, when you do what you do by signing as many players as you can, especially to one-year deals, you're not beholden to them. You don't owe them so much money that you feel forced to play them, although Vic clearly showed last year that doesn't matter how much you make, if you're not effective, he won't play you. But sometimes when you sign a lot of players to deals or trade for players, you have to see it through, right? But here you can go into the draft and basically draft any player you want. You don't feel forced to have to draft at a certain position because you lost so much at that position. That is what good teams do, and that allows you to be best player available.
I do also want to get your take on this as well. They essentially have remade their special teams as well. I mean, that's something, new snapper, new kick returner, punt returner there with Avery Williams potentially. But they did not want Cooper DeJean returning punts again, I can imagine. So that is something. And they, you know, when you bring in some of these secondary players, you better hope they play special teams too.
Yeah, and that's what makes Avery Williams an interesting signing. It's almost like the reverse. He plays special teams and plays it very well, but he doesn't play in the field. And Adam and I on today's podcast, Inside the Birds, it's up on the platforms. We didn't have an argument about it. We had a discussion about it, and I felt like it's going to be difficult for a guy like that to make the 53, because when you're on the 53 and you're primarily a special teamer, you still have to be able to get into a game and play if there are injuries at your position. This guy is a running back / defensive back, but he hasn't played. I think he played 10 snaps of running back last year. And before that, he hadn't played corner in 2 or 3 years. So corner is not a great position of depth at the moment, outside corner especially. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see if they bring back Britton Covey. Anaya Smith will certainly get some opportunities to prove himself as a punt returner. But I always think it's difficult, unless you're a long snapper, where that's okay if that's all you do, which they did bring in a new one. It's hard to make the team when you don't have any contributions on the field whatsoever.
What do you make of the tight end situation, the fact that they signed 2? What does that read the tea leaves on those 2 signings?
I mean, I think they needed to, regardless of whether or not they're trading Dallas Goedert, if he comes back or not, because Uzomah was on the team. He's a free agent. I don't know that they really wanted to bring him back. So you want to get younger at the position. And then they also lost, who am I thinking of? Uzomah, and there was another, Jack Stoll, right? He wound up signing with the Saints. So you really only have Calcaterra, Goddard, and EJ Jenkins. So you got to add to that position, especially if you are going to move on from Dallas Goedert. But even if you're not, you'd probably like to increase your youth and talent level at that position anyway.
Yeah, they brought in 2 tight ends for the people out there last week. They did sign tight end Harrison Bryant, who I think is did he talk today? Did he speak earlier today, or is he going to
I
speak in a
believe
little?
he either has or he might be speaking now. I forget.
Yeah, I got a bunch of these text messages from Brett telling me who's talking when and doing what, but he's one of them. And then I guess at this point, if something happens with Dallas Goedert, they're open to trade talks. You guys have been reporting that. I don't know. Is it more likely with the 2 tight ends signed that Goddard is here, or does that now the messaging with that suggest that he is most likely not going to be here? Because
No, I
I don't
mean,
know.
you can't
Do you see a
guarantee
situation where they just flat out cut him?
Dallas Goedert.
Yes.
I think that's the most unlikeliest of the scenarios, to be honest with you. They may have to like take a really low draft pick because now teams know that the Eagles want to move on. But I mean, I would think that some team out there would like Dallas Goedert and would like to not have to necessarily get into a competition with other teams for him. So, but I don't think any of the moves matter, to be honest with you, Mike, because either one of those guys can be cut. We're not talking about they didn't go out and sign 2 tight ends who have some great history of production in the NFL. They signed 2 backups who may be out of the NFL by this time next year. They were both guys who have had modest production where they have. The Eagles are hoping that environmentally these guys were not in the best positions to succeed, and in their system they'll be better. But they also signed them to the type of contracts where if they're just not good players, they won't be here.
Yeah. So just for the listeners and the people watching, the fact that they signed 2 tight ends isn't saying to you that means Dallas Goedert's just getting cut because they brought 2 tight ends in here.
Not at all. If they signed these guys to 3 or 4 year deals, then we'd be having a different discussion. But these are 1 year. I mean, look at all the 1 year deal signings that haven't made the team, or what Devin White last year. A couple of years ago, Terrell Edmonds barely made it to the. I guess he made it to the trade deadline. Got traded, or no? Before that, they traded for Kevin Byard. He was part of the deal. Greedy Williams got cut. I mean, I could give you about 5 to 10 guys who signed these kind of contracts and didn't make the team.
We always try to put the pieces of the puzzle together before the draft, which is sneaking up on us now. We are almost turning the calendar. We're halfway through March, but about a month and some change until the NFL draft. I wonder if Howie's kind of done until the draft, and waits to see what happens before because he usually that second and third wave, he usually hits something and pulls those 1 year guys in. Has he already done that?
No, I mean, I still think that there's places where this team can add. I think after the draft will be a prime time to add, because then you'll know more what your depth chart looks like going into OTAs and camp, because you've brought 6 or 7 players in through the draft and through priority free agency, or rookie free agency, we call it. And then, there's always a couple of guys where you think, all right, there's the trade market too. You may not get somebody in the draft that you were hoping to get, but you've been talking with a team.
Yeah.
That's how the CJ Gardner-Johnson trade came about 3 years ago with New Orleans. There have been other moves that have been made right before the start of the season. So there's a lot of time left. I know fans hate to hear that. And I know that as soon as the players start getting signed, you get excited about them and what they could be as an Eagle. We get a lot of backlash sometimes because we point out this guy might not make the team. What do you mean? He signed on the second day of free agency. Yeah, I can give you like 8 guys who signed on the second day of free agency. I can give you guys who signed for more money than these guys. Devin White, for example, that didn't make the team. It happens,
Well, and on the flip side of that too, they signed big name veteran players late in the free agent game that didn't make it. So just because you sign a Devin White level linebacker, that doesn't mean he's making the team. So, a lot of these signings here or there are for reasons. One could be, hey, we want to bring a veteran player in. I think that's the big thing is what the Eagles try to do. Bring in a guy who's going to push the guy that we really want to win the job, so that we don't just hand that guy the job. He earns it.
100%. 100%. And I guarantee you the thought process in the building is on guys like Josh Uche, on guys like Adoree Jackson, on guys like maybe one of those tight ends that they feel that their culture and their system will do for one of those guys like it did for Mekhi Becton. Again, I'm not going to go Zach Bond because I don't think they expect any of these guys to be all pros. But, Chris Long, when he came a couple of years ago, rediscovered himself after being in no man's land with the Patriots and some other team for a year. I'm sure the people in the building think that there's got to be one or two among this batch that's going to wind up surprising them.
I love this time of the year. We're so far off, but, you love getting into the battles and kind of, Earnshaw and I got into an argument on Friday about, I don't know if you heard this podcast, Daryl Morey was at the summit, and he's talking about how they use AI for their stuff. And I'm saying, I get it. It's a tool. And I'm saying if the tool is available to you, sure. I'm not saying you shouldn't use it. But sports is supposed to be about competitiveness, me against you, not the AI tool telling me stuff that I'm now spinning against you. That's why I think it just kind of cheapens sports a little bit when you've now got these computers involved. So I'll ask you a question that has nothing to do with AI, artificial intelligence. But right now, Geoff Mosher, who gets more snaps on defense, Adoree Jackson or Kaylee Ringo?
When the season begins?
Yeah, this season. Which of those two?
Look into the crystal ball and be like, who played more next?
Which guy ended up having a bigger impact to the defense, playing more snaps, Kaylee Ringo or Adoree Jackson? Because much like Steen and Green, you would imagine that those two guys. Now, we could be adding a third name in the mix after draft day, but right now, if training camp was to start today and their two are battling now, and I'm saying, Mosher, who's going to win that that outside corner spot? Is it Jackson or Ringo?
All right, Michael Gill, I will play your game in the spirit of what the heck else do we do in the offseason, right? I will say Kaylee Ringo. There's more invested in him, clearly. And, even though he's been described to me as not ideal to be your starter, I don't think anybody would say it's ideal for Adoree Jackson at this stage to be your starter either. Although I have to admit, Mike, when they signed Adoree Jackson, my first thought was, why are they signing another 34-year-old corner when they just let one go out the door? And then I looked, I'm like, holy cow, he's only 29. I mean, he will be 30 when the season starts, and that is on the longer tooth side for a corner, but I actually thought he was a lot older. Feels like he's been around for a while.
You're right about that. When he signed and he was still in his late 20s, I was like, Adoree Jackson, it feels like he's been around forever. 28 years old, Adoree Jackson. All right, Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. The latest pod is out. You can check it out on all podcasting platforms, and we'll see if the Eagles end up doing something between now and the draft, which I would imagine they do. They do have 4 fifth-round picks. They could be very active on draft night as well, and they got a ton of picks coming for next year's draft as well. And now that they lost Becton, there's going to be another comp pick, I would imagine, coming their way. So they're just adding more and more draft picks, which probably means more and more activity in the trade game. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. All right, buddy, thanks.
Yeah, you only get 4, by the way. Maximum of 4 comp picks. Just so you know.
They lost Becton, Williams, Sweat, and that's 3 right there, right?
Well, I mean, they lost Slay. Well, you're right. That's a release. That doesn't count. Becton, Sweat.
But they're not going to lose.
Yeah. You're right. Okay. See you guys. Have a good one.
All right, there's Geoff Mosher, everybody, from the Inside the Birds podcast and InsideTheBirds.com. You can check out the podcast on all podcasting platforms and every day right here on Football at 4. For those of you out there who are streaming in, I see a lot of people in the streaming audience getting involved. If you're watching on the X platform and on YouTube, at Mike Gill Show, do us a favor, repost the video, hit the subscribe button, download the free mobile app in the Apple Store, Google Play. It's free, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. If you want to take the show on the road with the phone, or on your phone, I should say. But when we come back, Nick Earnshaw's back for another edition of Nick's Nuggets right here on the Sports Bash Live. Now, Nuggets, I got the bracket. I run the bracket. I'm the bracket czar. Nuggets was one of the first guys in. He says, I'm in. Now, Danny Ryan, on the other hand, he says, I'm a party pooper. I'm out. I mean, you get one chance a year to have some fun with the brackets. My buddy says, I don't know anything about college basketball. Yeah, then you'll probably win. Schweim won last year. You think he knows anything about college basketball?
Yeah, I rain on his parade on Saturday about that.
Jeez. So Earnshaw's in. Everybody's in. We got a lot of people in. We run a big bracket. What?
Except for Danny.
Danny says, "Oh, I don't want to do it."
It doesn't surprise me at all.
How do you the guy that works in sports in any capacity and says, "I don't want to do it"? It's the one thing for 4 days to give you optimal interest in the tournament at a very low risk, high reward.
Nick is the ultimate. He's up for anything.
Nick, you want to go to the game tonight? I'm in. Nick, you want to do? I'm in.
You know what happened on Saturday? Nick left doing Billy's show in the studio, joined me to watch the women's game. Then we went out at lunch together, and then we went back to watch the men's game at night.
Everybody should have a friend like Nick Earnshaw, and he's a friend of the show with Nick's Nuggets next on the Sports Bash. All right, 4:33, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Nick Earnshaw is back. He was my spotter on Saturday night for the championship game on college basketball coast to coast. He sat courtside with me, gave me a couple of nuggets, if you will, during the men's basketball championship game. He's here for another edition of Nick's Nuggets on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And I could have sworn Nick's Nuggets were sponsored. Do I have the wrong sheet? Maybe I have the wrong sheet. I could have sworn that Nick's Nuggets were sponsored today. But I'll find that out. I think it's supposed to be on this sheet of paper. Because I remember someone said, I want to sponsor the Nuggets. Nick's Nuggets is here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. There he is, Nick Earnshaw. Always a good time. Does anytime you add. I said, Earnshaw, I texted, do you want to be in the March Madness tournament? Right back to me, in. Danny Ryan, nah, not into it. Not my thing.
Yeah, listen, I'm in. I'm always in. I had a buddy. So it's funny. I have this one buddy who grew up together, went to high school together. But we keep in contact generally here and there. But usually it's like one text a year. Hey, you in for the March Madness bracket? You in for the poll? I'm like, I'm in. 3 brackets. I'm going to join the ESPN league with you, whatever. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. And by the way, we got to start with nugget number 1. We got to recap the MAAC, Mike. The MAAC over the weekend was fantastic.
It's so funny you say that, though, because I had to search through my text messages, and it's everybody I text once a year. Hey,
yeah,
I'm running the pool. See, this is the frustrating thing. We've been running this bracket for like 20 years. Same site, same name. It just changes the year. And every year, hey, we sent out the text. I didn't get it. No, you got it. You got the text. You got the email. It's in there. It's called Clearwater Crew. Search for it. Oh, I found it. Yeah, I know, because we sent it to 90 people.
Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. And how many years have you been doing it? Nothing's changed. But yeah, you have that one friend where you get the one text a year. Yo, bracket, you in. Yep. I'm running it. Let's go. I'm like, I'm in. Sent a couple of those texts today, Mike. So I can't wait. I can't wait for the absolute insanity.
I was getting the text on Sunday from people. You run. I said, yeah, the bracket hasn't even been announced yet. Calm down.
I know. It's awesome. People are excited, man. Everyone gets excited around this time, except if you're a West Virginia person. I know you guys not too excited. I know down there the government's getting involved. They're suing the NCAA. I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy.
It's awesome. Yeah, they're doing an investigation.
Yep.
Which is probably with good reason. The guy from North Carolina is the head of the committee. He gets a $104,000 bonus if his team makes the big dance. You see that story?
Yeah, I saw that story. So listen, they got every right to go in, take a look at what's going on with the AD being on the committee from North Carolina. I get it. I'd be frustrated too if I was a West Virginia fan, but it's gonna be a fun time, and we had a fun time at the MAAC for sure. Yes, I was your spotter on Saturday. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Saturday. That was a lot of fun, and I'll tell you what, you nailed it in the open today, Gil. That crowd on Saturday was fantastic, loud. The acoustics you even mentioned it was incredible in Boardwalk Hall. Like, the atmosphere was great. And then how about Iona letting go of coach? I could not believe that. I got into the office this morning, Mike, and I saw that, and I was like, holy moly, Tobin Anderson fired right after losing the MAAC championship. I know they struggled throughout the regular season. They were kind of up and down, but man, he gets fired after the championship game. After only 2 years, I think that was a little quick. But man, I'll tell you what, there was a lot of good basketball. This past weekend, I went 3 nights in a row, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and it couldn't have been better. I'll say I hope they choose to stay after 2026, and maybe next year we'll see with the different times. The championship game is going to be on Tuesday next year. Having the whole weekend thing, that's going to be fascinating. We had the commissioner on Saturday for Billy's show. It was a fun weekend. It's a fun event. So if you're local, you got to get out. You're missing a big opportunity to enjoy some just college hoops, man, and then you feel attached to that team when they get to the big dance. I know Mount St. Mary's got to do the play-in for the 16 seed to play against Duke, but like you can be attached to that. St. Peter's a couple of years ago, Mike, going on the Cinderella run. You go watch that live, you feel attached to those teams.
Well, you do, number one. Number two, like this year, the kid from Florida was at Iona 2 years ago. So if you went to the games at Boardwalk Hall, you remember him. Now he's at Florida, and he's their best player. So you see guys like that. Patino was at Boardwalk Hall. They're now the number 2 seed for St. John's. It's one of those where this is like the jumping off point for a lot of careers. Yeah, listen, I wrote an article about how that Atlantic City locals, the local people, love to complain, but then when there's a good event, they don't support it. Now, I don't know how many locals were there. I think both schools did a good job.
Right.
I will say, I did get texts and messages from listeners, a lot of familiar faces I saw. I do feel that local people made it out, but I think more could go. That crowd was good. It was a good crowd. I think it could be a great crowd if more local people. Now, next year in 2026, the MAAC is moving to the weekend. The games are going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with the championship game on Tuesday night for the men. I think that will maximize opportunities for more people. I understand getting out on a Tuesday, school night, Wednesday, Thursday is tough. But next year, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you get 3 chances for weekend games. I think that will definitely help it be bigger.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I agree 100%. I think next year when they move it to the weekend, sometimes you can't help the TV times. I get it. But Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like that, people will want to be out doing something on that weekend, right? They'll want to have something to do, maybe check out the game for a little bit, then hit a casino or something along those lines. It's a great, you could pop in. It's only a couple of hours. You enjoy the game, then you're off and doing whatever else you wanted to do that night. So I think they could approach it that way as well. But yeah, it was a really good crowd for that championship game. And the atmosphere was electric, so much more enjoyable than the team in Philadelphia that plays professionally. I mean, so much more enjoyable to watch and so much more fun. The crowd's into it. It's fast-paced basketball. You're not slowing down all the time. It's just a lot of fun. I thought the MAAC did a great job this past week, and the atmosphere was just great. And Mount St. Mary's, man, playing tough defense. Hopefully they could get past that play-in for the 16 and play Duke, and they play them tough. We'll see. I need a 16 seed again, Mike. I need a 16 to beat a team like Duke. But Duke, I doubt it. They're the favorite to win the whole thing.
Well, we just did the bracket breakdown with Jeff Nadu.
Yep.
We do not see a 16 moving on. By the way, Knicks Nuggets are brought to you by The Hub, Summers Point Mays Landing gear that works as hard as you do, Nuggets. The Hub sponsoring Knicks Nuggets. By the way, that store is great. You ever been to The Hub?
I got to get down there. I do. You know me. I'm always in and around. I got to stop in. I'm going to stop in maybe this couple of next week.
The one in Mays Landing is really big. They got a big one in Mays Landing. There's another one in Summers Point. It's one of those places where you get your gear, man. You get your, the working stuff. You get the boots. You get the Carhartt. You get all. They got great stuff there.
Yeah, love the Carhartt. Love a good Carhartt. And by the way, I full disclosure, I got to clip some of this stuff that Mike's saying today. I mean, he's Mr. Positivity, all the compliments. I didn't send you the cash or anything to say this, Mike. So I got to clip this, by the way.
I only speak the truth. You do good, you get good.
I got to clip it. All right, let's move along. Nugget number 2. I'm going to talk about Jose Alvarado a little bit. And on the Phillies show podcast, I know Ruben Amaro had a lot of high praise for Jose Alvarado. And he's been pitching fantastic, Mike. Take a listen to what Ruben Amaro said about Jose Alvarado, what he's been able to do in spring training down in Clearwater so far.
He is leaner and he is stronger and he looks much better. And I think he's put the work in. I think he's confident about his stuff. The ball is coming out of his hand like lightning. And not only that, but the most important part of it, his command of the strike zone is really very good. And if, I know he's flipping in a little different breaking ball, but his bread and butter is that sinker cutter combination. And he's throwing it at 100 miles an hour and bringing it and then throwing strikes with it.
I'll tell you what, Amaro's dead on. He has looked fantastic this string. Velocity's up. He's got a 0.00 ERA in 6 appearances, 15 strikeouts. I mean, that's huge. Only 2 hits allowed. I mean, Alvarado was a guy who struggled mightily last season. A ERA over 4. You were on the edge of your seat every single time he came in. But with Jeff Hoffman leaving, one of their high leverage guys, Alvarado, even as a lefty, has to be one of their top guys to go to in big situations. And you need him to have a bounce back year. Mike, very positive on Alvarado right now. Ruben Amaro tends to agree.
I agree with what he's saying there. He looks great. His break is great. His velocity's there. His command is back, though. That's what he lost last year. He lost his command last year big time. I don't know if it was a mental thing. He just lost it, but he just could not throw strikes consistently, and it got to the point where he's walking the bases loaded. They're trying to keep him out. But you couple him with what he's done this spring. How about Jordan Romano? 7 games, 6 2/3, no ERA, whip 0.7, 8 strikeouts in 6 2/3. He's only walked 1 guy. If that Romano is the guy, and I keep saying, if he's the guy who was in Toronto for that 3-year run, all right, watch out. You get those 2 guys pitching the way they are in Clearwater in Philadelphia, now you probably have a better back end than you had last year, but that's a lot of ifs, right? You got to get Alvarado being more consistent. He's showing consistency now. Is he going to bring that consistency to the Northeast when they open up games in the colder weather here? They're playing in Washington, although it's like pretty warm out there, pretty warm day. I actually think it's warmer here today than it is in Clearwater. I know people that are at the game today, they said it's pretty chilly at the game down there today. But, yeah, Romano and Alvarado, those 2 guys are big keys because if they can perform the way they're performing right now in spring training, that changes the dynamics of the bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. When you have Alvarado out there just humming triple digits, that's what you need to see if you're a Phillies fan because he was so inconsistent last year. I mean, the command just wasn't there. Like you said, he was all over the place at times, and you didn't know what Alvarado was going to step out there. And he kind of fell out of that like high leverage role, right? They couldn't even trust him in those big situations. Thompson couldn't go to him because you didn't know what Alvarado you were going to get. So if he's back to normal, right, stays healthy, stays consistent, the command is there, that's huge. And you pair that alongside Romano, Phils are in good shape with the bullpen because the bullpen, I think it's a little bit of a question mark. You don't know with some of these guys, and we know how volatile bullpen arms are from year to year. Alvarado coming off a tough year, ERA over 4, whip 1.249 last year at 28 walks. Struggled. If you can get that consistency back and have those guys be at the top of their game like they have shown in the past, that's huge because you lost a couple of guys in the offseason, right? So that is what you need out of that bullpen. And hopefully, you know what? I don't want to see Thompson go to these guys so much early on in the season either because you're going to need them towards the back end in August, September, October. You want those guys healthy and ready to go. You don't want to just have them throw all these innings early on and then have them burn out by the end of the year.
Well, that's a big thing because you got Strom hurt already. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and listen, injuries are going to happen. I think another story is going to be what happens with Taijuan Walker, who pitched well again this weekend. So keep that in mind, too. Some people talk about, do you start with a 6-man rotation? Does he pitch out of the bullpen? There's not many more stories. You only got 10 days left. The Phillies open the season in 10 days. So the spring training portion, I'm leaving tomorrow, by the way.
Yep.
I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm going to the game Friday
Nice.
in Dunedin, and I'm going to the game Sunday in Clearwater.
Nice. I'll tell you what, though. The Phillies do start in 10 days, like most teams. And we have a new episode of The Shift out right now. It's on all platforms, wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, wherever. I have a problem. We talked about this on the show last night. And why are we starting games at 6 o'clock in another country, a.m.? The Dodgers are starting tomorrow, 6 a.m., 6:10 a.m. I can't understand why we don't have a uniform opening day. Why are we trying to go all over the place? All right, if you want to do an opening day or do a series over there like you did the London series, great. But you can't open the first regular season game at 6 a.m. Eastern time and then have it at 3 a.m. on the West Coast time. You can't have that. I'm sorry. I know you're getting an audience over there, but over here, you're losing an audience. You're trying to grow. Mike, I can't stand these 6 a.m. starts in another country. I'm just out on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't endorse it. It's not something I would say this is a great move for baseball, who lacks um, a lot of. They lack the foresight to understand that you get only so many days on the calendar year that's just
Yeah,
for you, and
right.
you're putting a game on in the morning when your season starts when no one's awake yet. I mean, I get it. They're probably making a boatload of money with the Japanese audience over there, but you come in with a bang. You got to make a seat. You got to do something to catch the attention. This is a sport that lacks attention always, and they constantly do stuff like this wrong.
Yeah, I mean, opening day, 4th of July, own those days. If you are Major League Baseball,
Memorial
own it.
Day.
Have one day, Memorial Day, another one. Own them. Like, you got to get more creative than this. Like, I love going across the seas, the London, the Japanese games. Great. It's awesome. I know Shohei Ohtani's huge over there, right? But you gotta have certain days where it's like, all right, this is our day. We're gonna own it. We're gonna do it. But that's all I got for you today. 2 nuggets for you today, Mike.
All right, a lot of nuggets this week here on the Sports Bash, I'm sure, as Josh will be in for me tomorrow and on Wednesday. We'll have the tournament on Thursday and Friday right here on 97.3 ESPN. There you go. Nick's Nuggets, everybody. Thanks, Nick.
All right, enjoy spring training, Mike.
Always do. And the Nuggets are brought to you right here on the Sports Bash by The Hub, gear that works as hard as you do. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, we got another edition of Rye or Sigh. Before we get to that, let me get out the numbers for callers 6 and 7. Here you go, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Excuse me, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. Caller 6 and caller 7. Right now, you're entered for a chance to win Phillies home opener tickets, a pair of tickets to the Phillies home opener, plus a parking pass. Caller 6 and caller 7, you also have a chance to win tickets to Metallica at Lincoln Financial Field, May 23rd and May 25th. 2 shows. You pick the tickets. 2 big winners. You must be present to win at Maynard's in Margate next Thursday, March 27th, on Phillies opening day for our Phillies opening day watch party at Maynard's in Margate. Caller 6, caller 7. Good luck. 5 o'clock, driving you home on this Monday edition of the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Want to congratulate our latest qualifiers for this year's Phillies opening day watch party. George in Galloway, Fran in Petersburg. They will be joining us on Thursday, the 27th, live at Maynard's in Margate. That's where we're going to be having, for the second year in a row, our opening day watch party. For those that you were there last year, you know to get there early because it was packed in there. We had an absolute awesome crowd at Maynard's in Margate. They've got great TV setups, good food there, great spot to go, watch opening day. A lot of Philly fans will be in attendance. And we have a pair of tickets to go see the Phillies home opener at Citizens Bank Park. Parking pass will be included in that as well. And then we have another secondary prize. I don't want to say secondary prize. For some people, that might be the prize. The Metallica tickets. Metallica is playing at Lincoln Financial Field this summer, or actually this spring. It's May 23rd and May 25th. 2 shows. You get tickets to both. And someone's going to walk away with a pair of tickets to the Phillies home opener. So we're going to have 2 winners, which is why we're entering 2 people every hour. We have another chance for you to enter coming up this hour on the Sports Bash, and then later tonight on game night. So you really have 2 more chances today. And then don't forget, bonus chances for you to qualify in the morning show with Unsportsmanlike. Listen in the 6, 7, and 8 o'clock hour. And once the March Madness begins, because we will not be on the air on Thursday and Friday, if you're listening to March Madness, there will be bonus chances for you to enter during the madness. Now, we do have everything time-stamped. We know when the sounder goes off, so if your text message time does not match, we get these random texts that are like at a time. We're like, did we actually air? No, we did not air something at that time. So we know when the text messages should be coming in, and we can cross-reference that. So for those of you who are like, well, I'll just randomly send a text in at 10:49 in the morning. Well, we know there was no cue to call at 10:49.
Is this where me being literal comes in handy?
No, because I can figure that out for myself. I don't need you to be literal to know that if someone texted in at 10:49 that no cue to call happened at that time.
But you're not tracking the winners. I am.
I can see the text board. It is pretty clear as day at what time the text messages come
That's
in.
not what I said.
It doesn't matter that that's what you said. I'm not an idiot, Josh. I can see the text messages and the times, and I know what times the cue to calls actually play because we discussed that they were going to play between 6, 7, and 8. So if a text message comes in at 10, I'm quite capable to figure out that that's outside the range of when the sounder plays.
You know, I tried to maybe boost my own morale a little bit, give myself a little pat on the back because I'm doing a good job. And you're like, Josh, go F yourself.
That's exactly what I said on that particular one there. All right, let's go to today's edition of Rye or Sigh. Ryan Rothstein is here. Well, I'd have to be an idiot, wouldn't I, to see the text time say 10:29 and know that the sounder did not go off at that time?
Yeah, I'm actually I don't want to drag this literal conversation on, but I'm curious as to what Josh was insinuating, how being literal would be helpful in this situation.
I was wondering the same thing. It was almost like he just wanted to say something just to say something because there was a microphone in front of his face.
Well, Ryan, let me ask you because you've worked with us for a while. You know how these contests work, right?
Yes, I do. Callers number 6 and 7. It's your cue to call. Yep, got it.
Right. So, as you know, typically who's the person who's answering the phone or going through these things to organize it?
I don't know why that has to do anything to do with the point that you're making,
I'm with
though.
you. I'm just saying, like, I'm curious what your literal heaviness
I thought it was
would've...
funny because Mike always makes fun of me for being
I
literal. And Mike saying, literally, we know that if you text at this time.
I'm with you. It was just a bad joke.
It was a failed attempt at
humor. It was a fail.
Yeah. We've all been there. Yeah.
See what happens when you're late to your segment?
Yeah, it's on me. It's on me. This is on me. I'm going to do a better job.
Right.
I'm going to do a better job. Listen, it's St. Patrick's Day.
You know, I inadvertently wore green today. I didn't even really put it together because I'm not quite paying attention because I'm packing my bags for tomorrow. So a lot of my stuff is packed already, and what was left over was green.
I actually wore green today as well, but I have a green screen behind me, so I had to change real quick. But I didn't do it intentionally. So whatever that's worth, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone out there. So I was thinking, all right, how can we incorporate this? How can I change up Rye or Sigh on a St. Patrick's Day Monday to send Gill off down to Florida? And I'm thinking of best moments in Philly sports history and what are the luckiest moments in Philly sports history? Now, I think I have a strong list. I'm going to give a disclaimer out there to listeners that I'm not knocking some of these moments that I point out. I'm not saying, oh, it was luck. I'm just saying some of the more special moments in sports history involve some luck. Is that fair to say?
Always. Better.
Okay.
There's the famous saying, you better rather be lucky than good.
The harder you work, the luckier you get. You know, I wouldn't know that, but yes, it's there's things out there that are alleged to be true. So here are some of my luckiest moments, and I can throw one out there and you can sigh at it or you can agree with it. I'll start with an easy one. 4th and 26, Donovan McNabb to Freddie Mitchell against the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round. Another playoff exit looming, and McNabb converts a 26-yard completion to Freddie over the middle. My goodness, one of the all-time luckiest moments. Would you agree with that one?
No doubt about it. I mean, it's one of the biggest plays. It's one of the most memorable plays in that era for a team that never won a Super Bowl and only got to one. They didn't get to one that particular year, but that's one of the more memorable plays from that era of Eagles football. No doubt about it. Fred X, 4th and 26. I got to say thank you to God for my hands. That was the moment that came from that one.
Thank you. I just want to thank my hands for being so great.
Yeah.
Legend in some unique ways. A legend in unique ways. All right, so another one that's a little bit before my time, but I had to throw it out there for a little bit of the older demographic in the listening audience, and I certainly know a lot about this team, MG. You know probably better than me. The 1980 World Series team, Philadelphia Phillies. They beat the Royals in 6 games, and this is a team that collapsed in the 60s. They couldn't beat the Reds or the Dodgers in the 70s. They finally made 1980 their year. And I throw in one of the more luckier teams and titles because they survived a 5-game NLCS against Houston where 4 of the 5 games went to extra innings. There has to be some luck involved to come out on the other side of that one.
Well, yeah, and you say 80, I remember that. I was 3 years old. No, I don't really remember
that.
Well,
you were alive.
And I will say, yes, I was alive, but even the 83 Phillies, I don't remember all that much. I was only 5 years old for that particular 83 team. But, to win extra inning games like that, to make it through a playoff run like that, yes, that would be a element of luck involved for that one there.
I'm going to throw one more out, and then we can either move on or you can maybe throw one or two that come to mind for you. And then obviously, listeners, if you have any that come to mind, text us 609-403-0973. The text board's open. Bad boys open here on it.
We got a signing by the Eagles, by the way.
Oh, let's hear it.
And it's one that I predicted. The Eagles are signing edge rusher Azeez Ojulari, according to Jeremy Fowler. So Ojulari, he was the one guy that I said he's the kind of guy that, to me, makes some sense. It seems like he would be a Howie Roseman guy. He would be a kind of guy that's, a high draft choice that has had some injury issues. But Azeez Ojulari has signed with the Eagles.
All right. Is it did you say the deal? What's the deal?
I have not seen that.
Okay.
Let's see. Jeremy Fowler, it is $4 million, 1-year deal, $4 million. Wow, he got a lot less than I thought he would get. See, I figured he would get a 4-year deal that's $7 million, 4-year, $30 million, $28 million, somewhere in that range. He must not have had a market at all, and he got 1 year for $4 million. Now, this is a deal, as I talked about last week when I said there's one guy, one name that I can come up with of all the free agents, Rye, that were on the list.
Yeah.
He was the one name I said of the guys that are still available. He's the one guy that makes sense to me, and here we are. I think that was on Thursday or Wednesday of last week when we were going through all the free agents. I said, he's the only guy that I can see them signing that makes sense to me.
What made you think of him? I mean, I wouldn't have picked him out if if my life depended on it.
Just he's a high draft choice who has had some injury problems, but he has been productive. And he went to Georgia too. That was another part of it. But he was a second round pick who just battled injuries, but when he was on the field has been productive, and he's the kind of guy that the Eagles generally, I think Howie Roseman takes a flyer on. Hey, come here, we'll try to resurrect your career. So he was the one guy that stood out to me as someone that they would take a shot on.
That position's low-key important because you have Nakobe Dean, who I love.
It's not low-key important. It's high-key important. I mean,
that's fair.
I'm
saying he's not going to play a whole lot, but he could.
Oh, I disagree. I think that essentially you're looking at him and Jalix Hunt replacing Josh Sweat. I mean, you're basically saying you two guys are now the edge rushers that are going to take the snaps from Josh Sweat. Who's going to win those snaps? Who's going to get more of them? Jalix Hunt. And this is the kind of move they've been making. We just talked about it for Football at 4. They have Kaylee Ringo. They sign Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson is a veteran first-round pick who's been pretty good in this league. They want Ringo to win the job, but they don't want to hand it to him, so they bring in a veteran player. I think they would like Jalix Hunt to win that job, but they don't want to hand it to him. So let's go get a guy who has a high ceiling at a low risk.
See, I'm looking at him. I don't know a lot about this guy. I'm not going to try and listeners. I'm not trying to pretend like I know a lot. Okay, disclaimer here for me. It says linebacker.
Yeah,
so
he's
online
he's more of like an edge rusher.
Okay, I was just in my head. I was thinking depth at the linebacker position, behind Dean, and those cats. I wasn't thinking edge rusher up front. So okay, I know they can be.
I would say he is more of your edge rusher in the mold of,
outside linebacker 3-4.
Yeah, those tweener guys.
I got
you. Now they're called edge now. Whatever, but some places still call them linebackers. But an edge rusher.
Yeah. All right. Nice little signing. It's another no risk. All reward.
I think him and now Uche. I was not like all that excited about. He's another guy who's like an outside linebacker, edge guy. I'm way more interested in this signing. This one is one that definitely makes me more excited.
All right. I like it. Listen, we need as many bodies as we can get up front. So, and we'll take another Georgia Bulldog. Why not? All right. Back to some of the luckiest moments in Philly sports history, and listeners, you can add in on them if you want. One more
real quick on Ojulari. Six sacks last year for the Giants. I'm just for the people out there who were like, he had 6 sacks last year for the Giants. The Giants wanted to bring him back, but he obviously said, hey, Saquon Barkley seemed like it was a good move for him, so I'll go there too. But 6 sacks. That's a pretty decent number for a guy, and he didn't play next to Jalen Carter last year. So let's just throw that out there as well. So he should get more opportunities here.
Yeah, that number can literally double if you're lined up next to Jalen Carter. So
yep. And listen, he might have been able to get paid more money to go back to the Giants, but maybe he said for 1 year to play next to Carter, I can become Josh Sweat. I can get 70 because he's not an old guy. Ojulari was drafted like 4 years ago, so I think he's only like 25 or 26 years old. He might even be younger than that. He was a young guy coming out of Georgia.
If you're any football player in the NFL right now, if you're a guy that needs to prove himself in any way, shape, or form, how is Philly not at the top of your bucket list? Because by default, immediately you're going to play better. Your stats are going to go up.
Well, the money obviously has to make sense, but he must not have been getting any offers. By the way, he turns 25 years old in June, so he's even younger than I think I was right around, but he's 24 years old right now.
It's surprising he didn't get any off. 24 years old, from out of Georgia, 6 sack season. I mean, 1 year, $4 million is not like breaking the bank.
Listen, when I brought him up last week, my only thought was, are they going to want to pay what they're going to have to pay to get him? And I think when we looked at Spot Track, it was about $7 to $8 million a year. And I'm like, that might be a little bit more than the Eagles are willing to pay.
Yeah.
And they got him for 1 year, $4 million. That is a total coup and a win for them.
It's a huge win. It's a huge win. And it could be another one of those signings where we look back on and say, grand slam from Howie the GOAT.
Howie the GOAT. Yes, indeed. All right. Sorry about that.
All right. Is it? I don't want to start. And am I good here? Do I have the clearance? All right. I'm gonna go with Villanova winning 2 national titles in 3 years, led by Jay Wright. Now you may scratch your head and say, "Lucky 2 titles, 3 years." It doesn't really make sense. You look at Villanova right now and the program that they may inevitably become under Neptune, and Neptune's going to get canned, but what's the direction of this?
He already got canned. What do you mean he's going to get
Right.
canned?
Yeah, you're right. That's
that was
my
yesterday.
bad.
He got canned.
Yeah, I know. You're right. That's my bad.
That was a whole other story. He got canned, and the student newspaper broke the story, and nobody gave the kid credit.
Yeah, it's even worse that I saw that, and I still said he's going to get canned. But my point is, you look at the direction that Villanova's in and how impressive those 2 titles actually were, led by Jay Wright. Like, this is a small, tiny, private university that was just put on the map in the biggest way. And, of course, the Chris Jenkins buzzer beater doesn't hurt things.
I agree with you. I was talking to – so I was at the – did you go to MAAC at all?
Yeah, I went semifinals and finals.
Oh, thanks for reaching out. I appreciate it.
No problem.
I was talking to a guy on Saturday night. He played at Mount St. Mary's, and he was saying, like, the magnitude of them winning that game might keep the school open. Like, that's how big those wins are for a school of that size. He's like, the school's in some trouble. Like, this win and them going to the tournament might allow them to, and Villanova, quite frankly, now they don't have money problems, but you're right about the size of the school and the drop-off. I always find this to be an interesting, like, VCU's in the tournament. They beat George Mason. Those 2 teams have been to a Final Four in, like, our lifetime. VCU and George Mason. And when you make runs like that, why
it puts you on the map.
It puts you on the map, but my point is, like, St. Peter's went and made that run, and they were like the darling of the nation. They didn't even make the MAAC tournament this year. They weren't one of the 10 teams that made it there. Now, I get it. A lot of their players got recruited and NIL'd and left. But that being said, you would think, like, the bump that you get from making that tournament, but these teams are just not capitalizing on it as much as I would think you should.
But, not to go down our NIL debate rabbit hole here, but I think you bring up an interesting point. I don't know if there will ever be a Villanova possible because of the NIL. Like, Jay Wright built that program, and he had guys stay.
Well,
like that initial turnaround.
He left because he couldn't do it anymore. He was just tired of the griminess of the NIL. So you lost a guy like Jay Wright. Like, if Jay Wright is looking at what happened to his program, he's got to be sick to his stomach. Like, what I built,
I'm saying with the NIL, you can't build a mid-major program like he did anymore. Like, we'll never see that again, is my point.
I mean, I wouldn't call them a mid-major. I mean, they do play in the Big East, which is a power conference, but they're just a small school. They're a small Catholic school. All those Big East schools that are in that same mold, the small Catholic schools, the ones that they went and got to form this new Big East, they're definitely an outlier, no question about it.
Like, even St. Joe's, as a kid, one of the best years, memorable years. That Elite Eight run, they were never able to capitalize on Jameer Nelson and Delonte West, that team.
Nope, and they have not been anywhere near that since that run.
No. All right, so I threw out 4th and 26. I threw out 1980 Phillies. I threw out Jay Wright and the Villanova, 2 national titles. Obviously, I have Nick Foles and Philly Special, one of the more lucky / memorable Philly sports moments. I'll throw it over to you. Any that stand out in your mind that I have not brought up?
Well, somebody texted in the Pete Rose, Bob Boone when they collided and the ball, kind of bounced out of his glove, and there's Rose sitting there making the catch. That's one there. I mean, this one's got to be if not number one on the list, it's got to be up there. The double doink, the fact that the Bears double doinked, and then against you, the quadruple doink. I mean, it's a game that the Sixers are involved in, but the amount of luck that's involved in that thing clanking off the rim, up, down, down it goes. I mean, doinks have been a huge part of the luck that has been involved in Philly sports. But the Bears double doink and the Raptors quadruple doink is a big one. I would say I'm thinking, the Flyers 6 overtime game, all the different shots and clanks off the post and, to get to that 6 overtime game, there's so many lucky things that have to go your way to persevere through 6 overtimes.
A couple of other ones that are hard to think of off the top of your head that I looked up. Flyers goalie Ron Hextall, first goalie to ever score a goal, 1987.
Yep, a little luck involved there.
Got to have a little bit of luck.
I do remember that. I do remember watching that game on Prism.
You remember watching that one live?
I do, yeah. I do remember watching that game. I was probably, 7 or 8 years old? 87? In that season, I was 10.
Last time. Wow, you remember when the Flyers had a goalie.
It's been a while, man. It's been a while.
It's been a while. All right, one or two others, and then we can transition to some other stuff after the break. But just to put a bow on this, obviously the 2001 76ers, specifically Game 1 against the Lakers in overtime, the entire world had Lakers sweeping, and the Sixers go in on the road and steal that one, Game 1. Memorable and lucky.
Lucky, yes. Nothing particularly lucky happened in the game. Just lucky to beat that team.
Yeah, just a lucky win. One other one, maybe fringe and questionable, but I'll throw it out there. The fans booing Donovan McNabb and the pick of really not getting Ricky Williams. But you think of like the luck or maybe unluck or centered around that Donovan McNabb pick and how the trajectory of the franchise changed after that day.
No question about it. I mean, I laugh all the time. Just think about this. In 1998, when they draft McNabb, 99, excuse me, after the 98 season, people wanted to draft Ricky Williams, a running back. Can you imagine taking a running back with the number 2 overall pick now? Now, Saquon Barkley was the number 2 overall pick, and people roasted the Giants for doing that. But think about how times are so different, that people wanted to take a running back over a quarterback in 1999.
Do we have any Super Bowl wins if they go with Ricky Williams?
No.
Like the impact of that pick?
No, I mean, he was a good running back. He wasn't what they thought he was going to be. I mean, he went to the Saints. They gave up the whole draft class to get him. The Saints were just not a good team. And then, he kind of went to the Dolphins and was okay. I mean, he never was the player that people thought he was going to be.
He couldn't stay off the weed.
Yeah, and guess what? He was supposed to come on the show with me at the Super Bowl, and he no-showed me.
I was going to go on with Mike Gill, but then I got high.
That's essentially what happened. I don't want to say that that's what happened, but he was scheduled to come on the show, and I did, which is rare at the Super Bowl when people schedule and then they just don't show, for the PR person to say, Ricky's running behind, he's not going to make the spot.
Yeah.
By the way, one of our listeners, Jeff in Ocean City, said he was at the 3rd level of the spectrum when Ron Hextall scored the goal. He says he might still have the ticket stub.
Nice. That's a great one. Still have that. Yeah.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Those of you who are just tuning in or viewing, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, the Eagles are signing pass rusher Azeez Ojulari, a 1-year, $4 million deal, 6 sacks last year. He will now leave the New York Football Giants, and he will head to the Philadelphia Eagles. He's 24 years old. I thought this was the move. If I saw all the free agents, and this was the one guy that I called out, for those of you who were listening last week and were like, why him? Like you, I said, he fits the mold. 22 sacks in 46 games. He has 36 hits. He gets a lot of pressure. His problem has not been his play. He has not been able to stay on the field. But the Eagles have taken shots on guys with high upside and injury issues. Can he stay healthy? If he can, they may have really found something here. We'll be back with more Sports Bash coming up on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube. At Mike Gill Show, repost, subscribe, be a part of the show. Download the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. More Sports Bash coming up. At 5:32, Sports Bash this hour of the Bash. Don't forget, Tropicana has boxing on Saturday, March 22nd. Don't miss a chance to see some of the top boxers from South Jersey. Undefeated Atlantic City fighter Justin Figueroa and the professional debut of Pleasantville boxer Julio Sanchez III. Get tickets now. Ticketmasters.com to ensure you don't miss Boxing Insider Promotion action-packed event Saturday, March 22nd inside the Tropicana showroom. The breaking news: the Eagles are signing edge rusher Azeez Ojulari, 1 year, $4 million deal. That's a steal. I think it's a great move by the Eagles. Ryan Rothstein's back for another segment of Rye or Sigh here on the Sports Bash. Happy St. Patty's Day, everybody out there. I've gone to the St. Patty's Day in Clearwater for years. I retired from that game. It's just mayhem.
You retired from the green beer?
Green beer, green jerseys, all that stuff. It's just too many people thinking that, it's like the one game they'll go to all year, and it just got too much. Although I hear it's pretty cold down there today. I know some people at that game today. They said it's chilly.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I have some family at the game actually today. I didn't get the weather report, but that's no bueno. Hopefully it's nicer for you. I'm sure it will be. All right. I'm going to throw a statement out for Rye or Sigh, and you give me a sigh, or you can maybe agree with me, Mike Gill. The Phillies, as we're approaching opening day, obviously we just talked about Clearwater and spring training. You think about the fast start and the weak finish to last season, and I'll give a statement here that you can sigh or not sigh to. Last year's fast start and weak finish will impact this year's Philadelphia Phillies team.
Last year's strong start and weak finish will impact this year's team.
Yes.
I'm going to side to that. I don't think that last year's team has anything to do with this particular team. And I'll tell you why. Because I think this team knows this is their last hurrah. Like, this is it. I think they're going to understand that if we want to play together, Real Muto, Schwarber, Castellanos, Harper, Turner, Marsh, like, it's now or never for them.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, but how do you not have last year's fast start get in your head a little bit, right? Because I think they know it better than we know it, Mike, that you don't want to have a fast start with that marathon of a season, right? Like, you want to be slowly piecing things together and click in October. Now, I don't know how you intentionally do that, but
here's why I think it's not a factor, because I think if they slump and they're not out of the gates playing well, Dombrowski will make a move by the deadline to break it up.
What type of a move? That's obviously, you're insinuating a massive move.
Well, I think if he sees that the lineup's inconsistent, nothing's really changed, no one's really, Stott's not doing something, Bohm's not doing something, Turner's just okay, the lineup switch hasn't really worked out, now I got to do something. Now I can't let this team go all the way to the playoffs with all of the same problems that we've been having over the last couple of years. I can't go into the playoffs again with this same lineup if nothing has changed. So I think that's why they have to get off to a good start, because they're being evaluated for moves at the deadline. Why? Because they didn't make any moves before. They didn't make any moves in the offseason to better this team. He gave this roster one more chance. You have to the deadline. If you don't do something, I got to pull the plug.
All right, so let me ask you this. Having said that, do you want this team to have a slow start so Dombrowski will make a move at the deadline?
Quite frankly, no, I don't care. Like, listen, do I want to see this group win? Sure. Like, I don't need to see them go outside and bring somebody else in. Do I think they're going to have to? I do. I don't think this team I think they can win a World Series.
That's crazy. I think it's crazy. And I'm sorry to cut you off, because we're on the same page with this Phillies team, right? We both said it last week that rear view or best still yet to come. We both sided with the rear view. But this team's loaded. The pitching staff's loaded. The lineup's loaded, right? Like, I just don't want them to have a knee-jerk blow it up mindset middle of the year, man. Just ride it out.
I don't think they're going to do a knee-jerk at the beginning of the year. I think it would be at the trade deadline.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Okay. So if they're hovering, in the wild card race or something to that effect, I think that's when you see them say, "Hey, we can't take a shot. We can't take the chance that this team just is what it is. Let's do something here. Let's try to do something if something's available."
All right, let me give you another Phillies one here that you can sigh to or agree with. A lot of talk about Alec Boehm needing to step up and have a big year, rightfully so. Some talk with Brandon Marsh and maybe a bigger, more of a full-time role, needing to step up. Right, a lot of names thrown out there. I'll keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Bryce Harper is the key. Bryce Harper is the most important Philadelphia Philly to get a World Series and to get over the hump. Do you agree or do you sigh?
That Harper's the most important?
Most important, X factor, however you want to label that. But, forget the Alec Boehm talk, forget the whoever else, Trey Turner talk. It's Bryce Harper. He has the ability.
Listen, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever your team wins, it's just stars that you really want to put this on and put it on their back. And they need MVP level Bryce Harper. They can't have a second level Bryce Harper. The team made it to the World Series on the fact that Bryce Harper carried them there, and then he wasn't as good, in this year's playoffs. But, yeah, if this team's going to make it, he can't just be a good Bryce Harper. He has to be a great Bryce Harper. And then, of course, they need other guys. The problem has been with this team, everybody has gotten cold at the same time in all of these playoff rounds. I mean, you just can't have everybody at the same time, and that has been the issue with this team.
If you get the same Trey Turner that we've been getting, but the best Harper we've ever seen, right? Like, do you think that can combat the Turner lag?
What, having a better version of Trey Turner?
No, I'm saying if they don't get a better version of Trey Turner, but Harper is a guy we haven't seen in a Philly uniform this year. He's out of this world.
Yeah, I mean, listen, having Trey Turner not be I think if the Phillies could undo that deal, they would. Like, hindsight knowing what they know, that this is the version of Trey Turner they're getting, I don't think they would do the deal.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is the year. I said it to someone earlier today. It's put up or shut up time for Trey Turner this year. Like, this is
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Like,
obviously.
they have to get, like, some people thought when they signed him that year and then what he did in the World Baseball Classic, a lot of people were picking him for, like, MVP, right?
Yes.
And he hasn't come close to that.
That was a story for, like, a day and a half after the World Baseball Classic. Like,
well, and think about it. The Phillies went to the World Series, right? And then they added Trey Turner to a team that went 6 games in the World Series. You're thinking, this is they basically replaced Gene Segura with Trey Turner. And you're like, okay, Gene was a nice player. He had a big hit in that game against the Cardinals, but he's not better than Trey Turner is. So I think you were willing to overlook that for the price. But now, looking back, you're saying, what the heck were you thinking, spending $300 million on Trey Turner?
I'm trying to think really quick. Has there ever been a time in baseball history where a team makes that type of a move to try and bring in a World Series and it actually works? Now, bear with me when I say that, because I'm not talking about the best player, like bringing in a Ohtani or bringing in an A-Rod. I'm talking like you already have stars, but you back the Brinks truck up for a guy. Like, that doesn't work. It rarely works.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know. It's a good question. Trying to think if there's a spot where, well, I mean, the Phillies did it one time where they needed a player and they couldn't come up, and they got Pete Rose, and he kind of put them over the top. He was the guy that they were missing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well before my time. I don't know what they paid him, but yeah. I don't know.
Listen, I would say some combination of 2 or 3 of those guys are going to have to not be cold, right? You can't have Harper, Castellanos, Turner, Real Muto all cold at the same time. You have to have somebody that's helping you out there. And that's essentially, they got no hit in a game in 2022. They just were dreadful in the 3 games, the 2 games that they lost against the Diamondbacks at home. And then last year against the Mets, same problem, couldn't get any hits.
Yeah. It's
not getting hits in baseball is a really tough recipe for winning.
Yeah, I know. I heard scoring runs is equally important too. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, I know we got to bounce in a minute or two. I wanted to throw this out on our way out for this segment, as we're both WVU alum. Our boys got snubbed, Mike Gill. Our boys got snubbed, and did you see the state governor, West Virginia State governor, and West Virginia State Attorney General have a press conference about this, demanding an investigation.
Yeah, I did see this. I don't know where they think they're going to pull North Carolina out of the tournament.
I don't know.
Can you imagine? Although, yes, with what's going on in the world today, stranger things would occur. Like, yes, let's get North Carolina out and put West Virginia in, because the West Virginia governor it listens to me more than the North Carolina. I don't even know who's in charge of either one of the states, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, newsflash: West Virginia's not UNC, so.
Well, the big thing with that was, and I thought Nadu brought up an interesting point, in that West Virginia has 6 Q1 wins.
Yep.
And that's like one of the most in the country.
One of 30 teams, yeah.
Yeah, but he said a lot of those wins happened when the coach's son, who's out for the year, injured, was on the team. So a lot of those wins occurred with a player who's not there.
Yeah, now this is that infuriates me, if that's one of the main reasons why, though.
But we've seen this in like college football, where
I know.
or we've seen it in college basketball, where the best player gets hurt and then the team's not seeded number one because that player's not going to be there. Now West Virginia, the DeVries has been out. Tucker, the kid, father's the coach of the team. How often do you see the kid playing for the father at that high of a level?
Never. I remember Rhode Island having a father-son duo. I forget.
Well, West Virginia had one with Beeline.
Right, and Beeline. West Virginia's had it a few times. Yeah.
But you don't see it so often, where the father is a Division I coach and his son is also the best player on the team. But the son ended up getting hurt, and he's out for the year. I don't know what's going to happen with him. Is he going to get a medical red shirt and be able to play again next year? Now there's some rumors that the dad is going to be getting hired by Iowa.
Yeah, it's a mess. Listen, I'm fine with an injury like that, changing the seeding, but you can't rob a program of a tournament bid because of that. That's just my opinion. 6 quad 1 wins. You deserve to be dancing, dude. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, no, I listen, I agree, because they did win some games, but a lot of those wins, Gonzaga, Kansas, they had another one that they all occurred while DeVries was on the team. He has been out for a while, though. He has not played. They lost that game to Colorado, which was that knocked him out. But
yeah.
All right, well, there you go.
Not so lucky.
Did you see, real quick, I'm surprised you didn't bring this one up.
What?
Keith Pompey tweeted out a story about the reverse standings, and Paul Reed subquoted and said, "They thought I was the problem."
Yeah, I saw it. I was kind of all over the board today. I know. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I love B-Ball Paul taking a shot.
Who ever thought B-Ball Paul was the problem?
Yeah, nobody.
Where did he get that in his mind, that people
the audacity
that he was the problem?
Right. I think it's him just making fun of and highlighting this bleep show.
Maybe.
Like it's just him. Hey, look at this mess.
Be cognizant to know that there's a problem, not because of you or anybody else. I mean, the injury situation just turned into a disaster. I listened to that full podcast with Maury.
Yeah, I listened to it.
Yeah, I listened to the full thing the other day. And it's funny because the guy who was with them, he was like the MIT guy or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're talking about what they want to see AI do. And what he wants to see AI do in the future is basically have a algorithm that basically evaluates you and your work.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Like evaluate a player's work and work ethic?
No, evaluate yourself.
Right. Yeah, but I took that as evaluating a player, right? Or just like Daryl Morey wants to be evaluated.
Yeah, Daryl Morey wants AI programs to be able to evaluate the work that he's doing to see if he's making mistakes.
Yeah. Which I'm sure that program's already out there.
Maybe. He sounded like he had a lot of knowledge about it.
Yeah. I mean, AI is already controlling everything we do. We just don't even realize it yet. But
all right, well, that's all we got today.
The robots will catch you. All right, man.
See you, man. All right, we'll do more this week here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. We have the Bet365 play of the day coming up next. All right, 5:53, getting ready to get out of here. Before we do, Josh, this is what I said on Wednesday's edition of the Sports Bash regarding the Eagles free agents. I know there's some interesting names on the market, but is anybody that stands out that you're like, man, this guy, I know they weren't going to be a big player in free agency, but I think they could go down this road. I gave you the one, Azeez Ojulari, yesterday, and I think he's in a price range that makes sense for them. All right, so that's what I said on Wednesday's show. So apparently on Tuesday, I thought that he would be in the price range for them. Well, today, they signed him 1 year, $4 million. I think they got him for a steal.
And as you said before, Mike, probably because of the injury history.
Very surprised, very surprised. All right, Bet365 play of the day. How we doing?
Down a Good Friday, Mike. Dallas Rockets couldn't stay under. Lakers made a close game with the Nuggets, but you are still 128, 87, and 1.
All right, tonight I like the Pistons minus 6.5 against Detroit, and Sixers Houston. That game's going over 224.5. See the Sixers defense yesterday? Now they're on the back-to-back. I can't imagine they turn up the defensive intensity tonight against the Rockets, so I'll go over the number 224 in the Sixers and the Rockets game.
And what was the number in the first one?
6.5. Detroit favored by 6.5. All right, that is my Bet365 play of the day. The breaking news, just as we got started this hour, the Eagles have signed free agent edge rusher Azeez Ojulari. All right, there you go. That is our cue to call right now, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. Caller 6, caller 7, you are in for a chance to win tickets to see the Phillies home opener on Monday, March 31st, or Metallica tickets for Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, May 23rd and May 25th. You must be present to win at our Phillies opening day watch party with the Sports Bash at Maynard's in Margate, 9306 Amherst Avenue in Margate. Caller 6 and caller 7 right now, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. We'll see you at Maynard's in Margate on opening day of the Phillies season next Thursday. Good luck, everybody. I'll talk to you next Monday.